Rabel, Tien, Ju. The old fisherman murmured these two words softly, his expression initially filled with confusion. As he repeated them over and over, it seemed as though he recalled something, a faint light flickering in his clouded eyes. I am Tien Ju. As the fisherman's memories gradually returned, the black fiendish aura already surging around him grew even thicker. It became like a rolling black tide, spreading and raging outward. However, all the fiendish aura instinctively avoided the heavenly doctor before it could even approach him. Between the two opposing figures, an expansive empty space was formed. The heavenly doctor remained unmoved by the ominous aura. Observing Tien Ju's still dazed state, he showed a trace of surprise. Your memories haven't returned, then how? The heavenly doctor's eyes gleamed as he prepared to take action. But suddenly, a distant voice reciting ancient scripture echoed through the air. Heaven's law is solemn, observe the rules and follow the order. I have obtained the Dharma, spreading it to all beings. Heaven's law cannot be defied. The heavenly doctor's expression finally shifted noticeably. Narrowing his eyes, he turned to look in the direction of the voice. Moo! Without warning, a massive green ox the size of a small mountain appeared before him. Its horns tilted upwards, and its forehooves moved swiftly, charging forward as if to crush the heavenly doctor in one blow. Beast! The heavenly doctor snorted coldly. He did not dodge but simply raised his right hand, where a glimmer of silver light appeared. The silver light transformed into a fine thread, piercing the azure ox like lightning. In an instant, the thread wove back and forth countless times, slicing through the ox entirely. The green ox was reduced to countless unrecognizable fragments, yet it continued its forward momentum, scattering into the air. Condense! A furious shout rang out suddenly. Moments later, the green ox that had been dismembered by the heavenly doctor miraculously reassembled, its original form emerging from the scattered remains. Leaping above the heavenly doctor, it prepared to trample him underfoot. Yet the heavenly doctor still did not evade. Before the ox could touch him, its body suddenly shrank. From a fully grown, robust beast, it became a newborn calf in the blink of an eye. Finally, it dissolved into a wisp of energy, vanishing into the heavens and earth. Tianyu, the heavenly doctor looked toward the direction from which the ox had come, a trace of amusement appearing on his face. An ethereal figure with white hair and a hunched posture emerged at that moment. Sage, sage. With the arrival of the Tianyu, the previously cowering disciples of the Cloudwater Heavenly Palace seemed to find their backbone. No longer fearful, they began to cheer fervently. Ah, Tianyu sighed softly, as though comforting them, and waved his wide sleeve. The cries within the Cloudwater Heavenly Palace momentarily quieted. Only then did his gaze fall upon the heavenly doctor and Tianju. Clap, clap, clap. The heavenly doctor began to clap lightly. Well, what a coincidence. Without looking at the two figures surrounding him, the heavenly doctor raised his head, as though searching for something, a thoughtful expression on his face. Heavenly doctor. Finally, the Tianyu could no longer suppress his anger. You've been hiding all these years, and now you finally dare to show yourself. His voice was like thunder, filled with boundless rage, reverberating throughout the Cloudwater Heavenly Palace. HMPH. The heavenly doctor merely snorted coldly, offering no reply. This dismissive attitude ignited the Tianyu fury. If that's the case, then there's nothing more to say. Prepare to die. Tianju, why aren't you acting yet? The old fisherman was still in a state of confusion at this moment. However, as the sage roared in anger, the two of them worked together seamlessly, as if they were old comrades in arms with years of experience. In perfect coordination, the next moment, the heavenly calamity sword was drawn with a resonant clang. Even though it was merely a broken sword, an overwhelming aura of murderous intent surged continuously from it, coalescing and refusing to dissipate, taking the form of a sword. From deep within the Cloudwater Heavenly Palace, a massive tremor reverberated. The turtle serpent Tai let out a painful wail as the hilt of the heavenly calamity sword, feeling the call of its master, began to struggle free from the turtle serpent's body. At that moment, an azure brilliance enveloped the entirety of the Cloudwater Heavenly Palace. A giant blue hand emerged, pressing the restless hilt of the heavenly calamity sword back into place. The Tai once again let out an earth-shaking howl of agony. Then, as if suppressed, its cries grew quieter and quieter until it fell into slumber once more. Grandmaster Hanhai. From various corners of the Cloudwater Heavenly Palace, astonished exclamations could faintly be heard. At least someone here is still clear-headed, the heavenly doctor commented coldly. In the next moment, the azure ocean in the sky rapidly contracted, condensing into a flickering phantom that seemed as though it could shatter at any moment. The figure appeared before the three, Heavenly Doctor, Sage, and the old fisherman. "Greetings, esteemed ones," the figure said with neither arrogance nor servility. "Hanhai, what is the meaning of this?" Suppressing his anger, Tianyu asked in a low voice upon noticing Hanhai's strange attitude. "The culprit is right in front of us. With the blood feud of the past, why not exact our revenge now? Master Sage is right, blood debts must indeed be repaid in blood." But Hanhai did not look at the Heavenly Doctor but instead turned to the old fisherman, who still seemed somewhat bewildered while holding the sword. The one who slaughtered the Cloudwater Heavenly Palace back then was not the Heavenly Doctor. It was Tianju. His words carried a raging resentment, and Hanhai's azure phantom trembled violently. His furious gaze locked onto the other party as if tumultuous waves churned within him. Tianyu was slightly stunned, then shook his head and sighed. "Hanhai, in the end, you cannot escape the effects of time. Has even your memory of that day become muddled? The butcher who exploited the vulnerability of our rear defenses and massacred every major sect, is it not this traitor before us?" Tianyu's gaze bore into the Heavenly Doctor, and the flames of hatred reignited in his eyes. One person may err, but could the countless souls who perished on that day all be mistaken? Hanhai shook his head resolutely and said, "I do not know about other sects, they are unrelated to me. But the one who destroyed my Cloudwater Heavenly Palace was undoubtedly Venerable Tianju." He spoke with absolute certainty. Though his appearance matched that of the Heavenly Doctor, and even his aura was identical. His ruthless, annihilative actions and his cold, emotionless demeanor could never have been mimicked by the Heavenly Doctor. Most importantly, the weapon used in the massacre was none other than the hilt of the Heavenly Calamity sword, now sealed within Tai. The Heavenly Calamity, a weapon of unparalleled power, can only be wielded by Venerable Tianju. These words made even the sage hesitate. He turned his head to glance at Tianju. It seemed Hanhai's words had stirred something buried deep within Tianju's mind. He stared blankly at his own hands. After a long while, he suddenly spoke. "Yes, it was me who did it." "What?" The sage's hunched figure straightened instantly as he stared incredulously at the old fisherman, who had just confessed. TL note. Hey guys, a reminder again to remember as they might be useful in future chapters that all of these name in original is Tianyu right pointing arrow Heavenly Doctor, Tianju right pointing arrow Heaven's Absolute, Tianyu right pointing arrow Heavenly Edict Mandate Decree, Hanhai right pointing arrow Vast Ocean. Some things and terms might change name in the future or may even be wrong, but I'll keep you all updated whenever a change might occur. It felt like falling into a nightmare, unable to escape. Tianju's entire body trembled uncontrollably. "That's right, I killed them all. Qin Tang, Xiao Chong, Fu Yun. I killed them all." Even the wise sage seemed unable to process this answer for a moment. "Why?" he asked, dazed. At that moment, Tianju's expression suddenly shifted. "No, that's not right, it wasn't me at all." Tianju lifted his head abruptly, glaring at Heavenly Doctor with hatred. "It's all you're doing, all those memories in my mind, they're fake. Ever since that day I met you, everything has been strange. Everything spiraled out of control." Pointing the Heavenly Calamity sword directly at Heavenly Doctor, Tianju demanded. "Was it you?" Facing Tianju's accusations, Heavenly Doctor's expression remained unchanged. "I thought you'd have improved this time. Turns out, you're still the same as ever." He shook his head slightly, a trace of regret in his voice. "What do you mean?" Tianyu noticed a peculiar undertone in Tianyi's words and asked sharply. Heavenly Doctor didn't answer but continued speaking to himself. "I've explained this to you countless times. Sometimes, even what you see with your own eyes might not be real." As he spoke, he somehow produced a set of 9 silver needles, arranging them midair. "Everyone seems so eager to kill me. Well, I have no choice but to resolve things my way." Seeing the 9 silver needles in Heavenly Doctor's hands, Tianyu's expression grew darker. Without waiting for further explanation, Tianyu acted decisively. "The law cannot be defied. Bind." It was as if an invisible force wrapped around Heavenly Doctor's body, causing his movements with the silver needles to pause slightly. "Weaken, injure, seal, cripple, damage." One by one, these words left Tianyu's mouth, each further slowing Heavenly Doctor's actions. Meanwhile, the old fisherman, his eyes glowing red, gripped the Heavenly Calamity sword tightly. His body turned into a cloud of black murderous intent, merging with the sword. Like a sharp arrow, it pierced straight toward Heavenly Doctor. Bound by Tianyu, Heavenly Doctor seemed utterly powerless, unable to resist. In an instant, the black sword energy pierced through Heavenly Doctor's chest. The black aura surged like a raging tide, engulfing Heavenly Doctor entirely. In no time, the previously calm Heavenly Doctor vanished from the Cloudwater Heavenly Palace. Is Heavenly Doctor dead? Watching from the shadows, Zhou Qingong was stunned. The battle between Heavenly Doctor, Tianyu, and Tianju had produced no residual shockwaves. For now, his clone observing in secret remained safe. But the scene unfolding before him was far beyond his expectations. He had thought Heavenly Doctor, with his formidable power, would at least put up a fight. Instead, he was struck down instantly by Tianyu and Tianju's joint assault. With his power, how could he fall so easily? Wait. A sudden realization hit Li Fan as he looked to the sky. The Cloudwater Heavenly Palace trembled violently. Two dark clouds appeared in the sky above. When he saw what they were, Li Fan's breath caught. They were giant hands, piercing through the heavens, descending upon the Cloudwater Heavenly Palace. Sage and the fisherman were both shocked, staring up at the hands with dread. They tried to resist, but their bodies were immobilized. Terror spread across their faces. Don't worry, this procedure will be over quickly. A booming voice from above, Heavenly Doctor's voice, reverberated across the heavens. Li Fan's heart raced, his mind nearly frozen. It was clear now, the figure that Tianyu and the fisherman had confronted was merely a statue of Heavenly Doctor. And these giant hands were Heavenly Doctor's true form. In the face of these colossal hands, even the powerful Tianju and Sage seemed like insects on an operating table, utterly helpless. The hands seized them, suspending them in midair. The 9 silver needles from the statue now floated toward the hands, initiating treatment. Watching from afar, Li Fan felt an uncontrollable chill. Heavenly Doctor, what on earth is he? The overwhelming strength Heavenly Doctor displayed far surpassed Li Fan's estimations. Even if he wasn't at the longevity Immortal realm, he was not far from it. Li Fan immediately considered abandoning his clone to avoid Heavenly Doctor tracing it back to his true body. But then he realized, no, Heavenly Doctor has obviously discovered that someone is plotting this behind his back, not insignificant ants observing from the sidelines. However, if the clone suddenly disappeared now, it would be too obvious and might draw attention instead. Caught in a mental battle, Li Fan chose to gamble. He watched the surgery with bated breath, hoping Heavenly Doctor still adhered to human logic and wouldn't overthink. From Li Fan's current perspective, he still couldn't discern the reason. He only felt silver light scattering, and the angry curses from Tianyu and Tianju gradually grew weaker. Finally, as if sinking into a deep sleep, becoming almost inaudible. As the surgery concluded, the fisherman reverted to his confused, memory-lost state, wandering off. The sage, meanwhile, resumed his scholarly demeanor, disappearing with his ox cart. After completing everything, the 2 giant hands retracted the silver needles. Gently pressing down, the Cloudwater Heavenly Palace, which had been filled with wailing sounds just moments before, instantly fell silent. Almost there. Just a little longer. As the Heavenly Doctor muttered softly, all the strange phenomena in Cloudwater Heavenly Palace, including the vast sea, instantly returned to their original state. It was as if they had remained undisturbed for millions of years, unchanged and untouched. In that fleeting moment, every cultivator adventuring within Cloudwater Heavenly Palace, including Li Fan's clone, was reduced to dust under the light press of the Heavenly Doctor's hands, leaving no trace behind. There was no room for resistance. In fact, Li Fan's clone, Zhou Qingong, never even realized how he had died. Li Fan, in his true body, only felt the connection to his clone sever instantly as the Heavenly Doctor's massive hands pressed down. True destruction, unconcerned with you or your cause. Ha! Losing his clone, Li Fan took a deep breath, feeling a peculiar sense of relief. It seems my gamble was right. Even someone as powerful as the Heavenly Doctor would never guess that the ant he just crushed underfoot was secretly plotting against him. However, Li Fan's expression remained solemn. The Heavenly Doctor's strength, displayed during this confrontation, was beyond comprehension. In Li Fan's original plan, even though the fisherman was half mad and forgetful and the sage was weakened after transforming into an anomaly, their combined efforts should have caused some trouble for the Heavenly Doctor. But the reality was starkly different. The gap between the two and the Heavenly Doctor was as vast as the gap between Li Fan and them, a difference spanning several major realms. They were no match for him. Li Fan's calculated attempt to trouble the heavenly doctor turned into a self-humiliating joke. Even though the fisherman and the sage were top-tier powers beneath the longevity immortal realm, they were effortlessly manipulated like insects in the hands of the heavenly doctor. Such overwhelming power. Could it be that heavenly doctor has already ascended to the longevity immortal realm? Li Fan couldn't help but entertain this thought. Otherwise, there was no way to explain the heavenly doctor's unparalleled strength. What laws is he defying? Silently, unnoticed by others. Could it be that he's the one controlling the laws of life and death, the very one who caused Lan Yu's failure in achieving the Tao? And what exactly is the relationship between the heavenly doctor and the 10,000 Immortal Alliance? Come to think of it, I've never seen the heavenly doctor act on behalf of the 10,000 Immortal Alliance, not even during the fiercest battles between Mysterious Net and the Resistance cultivators in my previous life. Questions upon questions flooded Li Fan's mind in an instant. Originally, Li Fan thought he could at least uncover some of the heavenly doctor's secrets this time. But the more he learned, the more he realized how unfathomable this person was. Unless I reach the Tao integration realm, I'd best avoid provoking him. Li Fan sighed and reluctantly made his decision. Even with the rare treasure truth in his possession, the overwhelming disparity in strength left him no choice but to retreat for now. Otherwise, walking this perilous path repeatedly would eventually expose him to danger, and luck wouldn't always be on his side. Suppressing his frustration and doubts, Li Fan calmed himself after half a day. He began reflecting on the observations his clone had made in Cloudwater Heavenly Palace. Tianyi, Tianju, Tianyu. All of them start with Tian, and seem to be old acquaintances. The people in Cloudwater Heavenly Palace even call them all Venerable ones. It's evident they share a common origin. The Xuantian sect. Based on the clues he had, Li Fan instinctively drew this conclusion. Yet, something about it didn't feel right. In the illusion created by Senior Sister Zhao, Li Fan had discussed the ancient Xuantian sect, a massive force that once ruled the Xuanwang realm. The Xuantian sect usurped the heavenly mandate, claimed the power of the heavens, and suppressed all living beings. The leaders of the sect often bore titles like Heavenly King or Dharma King. But the heavenly doctor and his companions seemed to revere the heavens themselves. Those who were following the sage and reading were repeating words such as, the laws of the heavens are strict, rules must be obeyed, and, the laws of the heavens cannot be defied. This didn't align with what Li Fan knew of the Xuantian sect. With their level of cultivation, they couldn't have appeared out of thin air without leaving traces. Just who are they? Li Fan fell into deep contemplation. The events within Cloudwater Heavenly Palace were earth-shattering, yet the surrounding Congyancy remained eerily unaware. Other than the mysterious disappearance of the recently revealed Cloudwater Heavenly Palace ruins, nothing else seemed to have impacted the Congyancy. However, the Xuanwang realm's top-tier powers extended beyond just the heavenly doctor. Ordinary cultivators might not notice anything, but the Five Elders Association's longevity immortal heavenly sovereigns must have sensed something. As Li Fan gathered scattered pieces of overlooked information, he began to uncover hints. For instance, after the war in Tianling Prefecture, the Five Elders Association recalled all their cultivators stationed in border regions. Within days, every cultivator had been withdrawn, suggesting they had no intention of engaging in war anytime soon. Then, surprisingly, the Five Elders Association sent envoys to propose a friendly exchange with the 10,000 Immortal Alliance. They claimed the prolonged estrangement had led to mutual unfamiliarity and suggested this rare post-war opportunity to foster understanding. While the 10,000 Immortal Alliance had yet to respond officially, the Five Elders Association's unusual gesture sparked curiosity. After all, the Five Elders Association, boasting 5 longevity immortal heavenly sovereigns, had always been domineering. Reason and diplomacy were not their style. For them to suddenly suggest easing tensions and promoting cooperation. Some uninformed cultivators thought the 10,000 Immortal Alliance's victory in the Tianling Prefecture had forced the Five Elders Association into submission. But Li Fan believed otherwise. This shift undoubtedly stemmed from the Heavenly Doctor's actions, which the 5 heavenly sovereigns must have noticed. Perhaps the previous war was also a probe to see if the immortal ancestor was still present. While they failed to draw out the immortal ancestor, they exposed the Heavenly Doctor instead. Could it be that the Five Elders Association is wary of the Heavenly Doctor because he's truly in the longevity immortal realm? Li Fan remained uncertain. From his limited understanding of the longevity immortal realm, such beings defy the natural order and become part of the heavens themselves. Their connection to the heavenly Tao should be unmistakably distinct, vastly different from ordinary cultivators. But every encounter with the heavenly doctor lacked any trace of the heavenly Tao. Instead, his human aura remained unmistakably vivid. Simply put, the heavenly doctor doesn't yet seem like a longevity immortal realm cultivator. In the past, when Li Fan was traveling through the Five Elders Association and the illusionary realm shattered, he briefly confronted Senior Sister Zhao. In that fleeting moment, he felt a chilling sense of facing the vast heavens and earth. The heavenly doctor was indeed powerful, but he did not evoke the same feeling in Li Fan. Even the giant hand that instantly suppressed the fisherman and the sage merely made Li Fan sense its overwhelming strength, but not a fundamental transformation. This was an instinctive feeling in the heart of a cultivator, profound and indescribable. But deep down, Li Fan believed it was likely true. No matter if the heavenly doctor has reached the longevity immortal realm or not, he has displayed actual combat strength that could intimidate someone of that level. In front of such a cultivator, no matter how many expendable troops are sent, it would be meaningless. The five heavenly sovereigns definitely won't act personally, which is why the war was halted. Li Fan mused thoughtfully. Recalling the heavenly doctor's appearance, he considered how it might influence the trajectory of the Xuanwang realm's history. Suddenly, a formless killing intent that had been monitoring for a long time without results finally responded. Li Fan's attention shifted instantly across millions of miles, landing on Master Yin of Yin Yin Island in the Kongyan Sea. After studying the barrier between mortals and immortals for a long time, it seemed he had finally discovered something. At this moment, Master Yin had collapsed to the ground, bewildered and helpless. No, no, no. I must be mistaken. This is absolutely impossible. Master Yin's face was full of unconcealable terror. It was as if he had uncovered a truth he could not accept, frantically pulling at his hair in a desperate attempt to calm himself. No, no, no. But he couldn't control himself. Whatever he had discovered had deeply shaken his worldview, driving him to the brink of madness. He repeatedly banged his head on the ground, ignoring the blood streaming from his forehead. After an indeterminate time, his face was bloodied and unrecognizable, making it impossible to discern his expression. It must be a mistake. There's no way someone like this exists in the world. And he couldn't possibly be such a person. Let's try again. As if clinging to a sliver of hope, Master Yin quickly stood up, not even bothering to wipe the blood from his face. He once again released several mortal test subjects, extracting the barrier from their bodies for further research. This Master Yin, erratic and deranged, what exactly did he discover? Li Fan frowned. Another enigmatic person. Why not directly search his soul to find out? A flash of malice appeared in Li Fan's eyes but was quickly suppressed. Although Master Yin seemed to possess only foundation establishment cultivation on the surface, there was something unusual about him. Li Fan couldn't entirely rule out the possibility that he was feigning weakness. Forcibly searching his soul might even backfire. Patience. The Xuanwang realm was fraught with danger, with too many hidden powerhouses. Recently battered by both Ruimu and the heavenly doctor, Li Fan took a deep breath to calm his restless heart. Continue monitoring. Hopefully, before he self-destructs, we can glimpse the truth. In the following days, Li Fan focused on re-refining his clone. For this, he even returned to the seabed of Kongyan Sea to retrieve the coffin where Zhou Qingong was buried. Looking at Zhou Qingong, still trapped in a dreamlike slumber with a faint smile on his face, Li Fan snorted coldly. Knowing nothing might be a form of happiness. This time, Li Fan extracted more essence blood and replenished the stone coffin with spiritual stones to sustain Zhou Qingong's vitality. Only then did he bury the coffin again. With practiced ease, he crafted a new clone. However, the items the previous clone had carried were all reduced to ashes. Returning to Kongyan City would inevitably bring some minor troubles, but they were trivial and wouldn't affect the overall plan. As the clone returned to Kongyan City, Li Fan's main body stood above the sea, gazing at the sky. The heaven and earth divination dice floated in his hand, its light and shadows shifting. Before long, Li Fan gained clarity. Just as predicted, the date for the Crimson Flame's descent seems to be moving up significantly. The heavenly ranked beings. Li Fan pondered for a long while before shaking his head with a sigh. Coming sooner might be better, to burn all traces clean. As for whether to release Ink Death again, he recalled his earlier plans regarding Tianyang Zhenren. I'll ask him when the time comes. Whether he remains at soul transformation forever or takes a gamble at Tao integration, let him choose. However, given his temperament of never being weaker than others, he'll likely choose the latter. After a while, Li Fan's thoughts paused. I once believed that after refining the Crimson Flame and succeeding in Tao integration, facing ink death would still be a hopeless situation. But Tianyang is somewhat unique. He has already died once. His current form is more like a puppet infused with a trace of Tianyang's will than a true living being. He might have a chance to escape with his life. Ink Death's previous world-ending attacks were confined to the Kongyan Sea region. If he flees far enough. The thought of having a Tao integration level ally greatly tempted Li Fan. Previously, he viewed Ink Death as an almost invincible force. But after witnessing the true strength of the Heavenly Doctor, this belief began to waver. The Heavenly Calamity Remnant Sword had been able to battle Ink Death for a long time during the latter's apocalyptic rampages. This suggested that Ink Death was not entirely unbeatable. It's worth a try. Even failure wouldn't cost much. Having made his decision, Li Fan calculated the timeline. It had already been 15 years since anchoring. The Crimson Flame would soon descend, and preparations needed to be made. 15 years anchored. A sudden thought struck Li Fan. After a moment of contemplation, he took out a communication talisman to contact Zhao Shuyuan. Unexpectedly, Zhao Shuyuan refused the call. After a moment, Li Fan tried again. Zhao Shuyuan refused once more. Li Fan was not annoyed and persisted. After 6 attempts, Zhao Shuyuan finally accepted the transmission. HMPH, Taoist Zhao, have you risen so high lately that you no longer recognize old friends? Li Fan snorted coldly. Not at all, not at all. I was just busy with something important and couldn't step away. Zhao Shuyuan replied with grievance. Taoist Zhao, your excuse is rather clumsy. Who doesn't know that you have thousands of incarnations? One is busy, or all of them. You're truly insightful, Taoist. How did you know I was about to break through? Zhao Shuyuan asked in surprise. Li Fan fell silent. Haha, but this advancement is proving to be much harder than expected. Without additional opportunities, I fear it will be delayed for a long time, Zhao Shuyuan said regretfully. Oh, why is that? Li Fan asked casually. My Tao lies in commerce. It lies in profit. Zhao Shuyuan spoke with a touch of emotion. In this world, all things flow for profit. The path of commerce flourishes abundantly across the mortal realm. Thus, I create countless puppets, observe the gains and losses of the human world, and cultivate through this process. At the beginning, the accumulation of wealth is always extremely rapid. It's almost like climbing a staircase daily, and my cultivation realm also advanced step by step alongside it. But upon reaching a certain level, the expansion of Qinli Hall slowed significantly. My cultivation stalled for a long time. Originally, I thought I could rely on the insights from this massive profit to make a breakthrough in one go. Yet, it turns out, I'm still lacking a spark. The saying, seeing the mountain but exhausting the horse, comes to mind. What seemed within reach was actually separated by countless mountains and valleys. Li Fan listened to Zhao Shuyuan's lament and recalled the immense gap he recently witnessed between those in the Tao integration realm and the longevity immortal realm. He couldn't help but silently acknowledge and nod slightly. At this moment, Zhao Shuyuan continued. Moreover, I've found that the path of commerce, at my current level, is now constrained on all sides and fraught with difficulties. Moving further forward has become incredibly challenging. Before Li Fan could ask, Zhao Shuyuan answered his unspoken question. Take, for example, the last incident with the Samantabhadra True Leaf. Under ideal conditions, we could have profited even more. From a purely commercial perspective, the price of Samantabhadra True Leaf had already soared to the heavens. The 10,000 Immortal Alliance, controlling the 5 elements Great Cave Heaven, had an abundance of Samantabhadra True Leaf. They could have capitalized on the market, yet they abruptly issued an edict that reset everything to its original state. They claimed it was for stability, but wasn't it ultimately for their own benefit? Zhao Shuyuan muttered. Li Fan, upon hearing this, seemed contemplative. Taoist Zhao, your meaning is that profit must always be earned from others. Upon reaching a certain point, further advancement inevitably leads to conflict with others. Exactly, Zhao Shuyuan praised. If the opposition is weak, one can easily crush them. But if the opponent is a formidable wall, charging head-on will only result in a bloody head. At that point, one has no choice but to take a detour around the wall. Yet, This world is ultimately under the rule of the 10,000 Immortal Alliance and the 5 Elders Association. Breaking free from these constraints is easier said than done. Dancing with shackles on, naturally, is 100 times harder. Li Fan laughed lightly after hearing this. In that case, Taoist, the fault doesn't lie with you but with this world. To be constrained at every turn is truly dissatisfying. Taoist Zhao, why not join me in overthrowing the 10,000 Immortal Alliance and recreating the heavens and earth? What do you say? Zhao Shuyuan fell silent abruptly. He looked at Li Fan with a peculiar gaze. For a moment, a strange silence enveloped the two of them. Haha, Taoist, you must be joking. Haha, just a joke. Taoist Zhao, you didn't take it seriously, did you? After a moment, they both spoke at the same time, exchanging glances before mutually moving past the topic. Speaking of which, Taoist, what do you believe your path would look like at its extreme? Li Fan asked. Zhao Shuyuan pondered for a moment before answering slowly. The world's wealth has a finite total. The rich grow richer, and the poor remain poor. If I continue to profit, the world's wealth will flow continuously toward me. Then one day, perhaps my wealth alone will exceed that of everyone else combined. Zhao Shuyuan's eyes gleamed with longing. To his surprise, Li Fan chuckled lightly after hearing this. Zhao Shuyuan raised an eyebrow. What is it? Does Taoist have a different opinion? Too small. Your vision is too small. I thought Taoist Zhao was among the most brilliant minds in the world, yet. Li Fan shook his head slightly, his tone filled with regret. A trace of gloom flashed in Zhao Shuyuan's eyes. If it's truly the extreme, why would anyone else in the world still possess wealth? Li Fan smiled faintly. Shouldn't it be that all things in the world belong to you, Taoist, and everyone else owes you? Taoist must understand that the total sum of worldly wealth is finite. But, Li Fan's tone turned chilling. What others owe you has no limit. Billions, trillions, it can be endlessly accumulated. Not just in this lifetime, but in life after life, for endless descendants, they would labor eternally to repay their debts to you, Taoist. Li Fan's words were like thunder, instantly striking Zhao Shuyuan. The gloom in his eyes dissipated immediately, replaced by shock. Could it really be possible? Li Fan's words seemed to open up an entirely new world for him. First, his eyes showed confusion, but soon they grew brighter and brighter, filled with exhilaration. Before long, as though he had achieved enlightenment, he exclaimed. Indeed, profit in one moment or one lifetime is ultimately limited. But time is infinite. If I spread my goal across the river of time. Zhao Shuyuan became immersed in his vision, his eyes shining brightly. Taoist Li Fan, is this the future path you have deduced for me? After a long while, he finally returned to his senses and looked at Li Fan. Li Fan shook his head. I dare not claim to guide. It's merely a glimpse of a possible future that I happened upon during my daily deductions. In my heart, I felt it might benefit Taoist Zhao's path, so I remembered it. Upon meeting you today, I thought to share it with you. Taoist Zhao, I hope you don't find my thoughts absurd. Zhao Shuyuan's eyes flickered. Taoist Li Fan, your ability to deduce is truly astonishing. To foresee such a peculiar future. However, Taoist, you came to me today and pointed this out to me. He looked at Li Fan, puzzled. Li Fan smiled. I said you'd prosper and forget old friends, and you still deny it. Taoist, could it be you've forgotten the commission I gave you earlier? Zhao Shuyuan froze briefly before realizing. You mean, given your cultivation, it's naturally impossible to forget. But since you've not replied for so long, there must be some unspeakable difficulty. Still, this matter is important to me, so I can only thicken my face and trouble you again. Li Fan cupped his hand and said with solemnity. Zhao Shuyuan stared at Li Fan, his expression changing rapidly. 5 years ago, he had promised Li Fan to investigate the identity of an ancient cultivator whose traces were sought after by the 10,000 Immortal Alliance as they excavated the ruins of ancient sects. He had indeed taken on the task. At first, he didn't take it seriously, intending to find some casual information to report back. However, to his surprise, the 10,000 Immortal Alliance, known for leaking secrets like a sieve, had carried out this secrecy effort with extraordinary thoroughness. Even with his capabilities, it had taken him nearly 2 years to find nothing of value. Zhao Shuyuan was genuinely intrigued this time. News meant opportunities, potential breakthroughs. He poured tremendous effort into infiltrating and persuading people, spending an incalculable amount of money. However, no cultivator was willing to disclose even a single detail. Some subtly indicated that this matter was far more significant than anything else before. If any of this leaks, you might live to know it but not to enjoy its rewards. Despite his reluctance, Zhao Shuyuan had no choice but to abandon the endeavor. With no results, there was naturally no response to send to Li Fan. Yet, just as he was about to let the matter fade from his mind, an unexpected turn of events occurred. Not long after the end of the great battle in the Tianling prefecture, a previously tight-lipped cultivator who had sworn to keep the secret suddenly contacted him in private. Zhao Shuyuan was surprised. The person confessed directly, "Things have changed. The current situation isn't what it used to be." The confidentiality level of the matter had been downgraded by several levels, but of course, a reward was still expected. Zhao Shuyuan paid a hefty price, one that even made him feel the pinch, to acquire this piece of secret information. The revelation left him both shocked and impressed. Such information couldn't just be handed over to Li Fan for free. Furthermore, Zhao Shuyuan doubted Li Fan could afford to pay the price for this classified intel. Thus, he chose to let the matter rest. Until today, when Li Fan sought him out personally. The future of ultimate creations. That's sufficient. In an instant, countless thoughts flashed through Zhao Shuyuan's mind. Finally, he made a decision. My memory is failing me, I almost forgot. Zhao Shuyuan exclaimed, patting his forehead. Honestly, what you asked me to investigate is truly a top secret of the Immortal Alliance. Even if someone else offered a huge contribution, I wouldn't have disclosed a thing. But, Zhao Shuyuan sized up Li Fan and said, "What's our relationship? We've made money together. And with today's guidance, how could I refuse?" Zhao Shuyuan emphasized his words. "I don't mind telling you for free. But this isn't something I can discuss over a talisman message. If you're truly interested, come see me at the nearest Qinli Hall." Li Fan's eyes narrowed slightly. It seemed this matter was indeed extraordinary. Zhao Shuyuan was being extremely cautious. With that, he nodded and ended the communication. After thinking it over, he decided to return to the Kangyan Sea through the teleportation formation. At a Qinli Hall shop in Immortal City of the Kangyan Sea, he met Zhao Shuyuan. There weren't many customers, and after sending them all away, Zhao Shuyuan locked the doors and seemed to set up a barrier around them before beginning to speak. "Do you know the Xuantian sect?" Zhao Shuyuan started with a shocking question. Li Fan's eyes flickered, and he nodded slightly. "An ancient cult, everyone seeks its destruction." Although the Xuantian sect was no longer known to the world, Li Fan, as a cultivator from the Heavenly Mechanism sect, was naturally aware of its existence. Zhao Shuyuan wasn't surprised by his answer and continued. This time, the Immortal Alliance discovered an ancient slumbering cultivator, who happens to be one of the 12 Dharma kings of the Xuantian sect. What? A spark of light flashed in Li Fan's eyes. A Dharma king of the Xuantian sect? Still alive? He asked in surprise. Indeed, I was shocked when I learned of it too. This individual has managed to survive across several eras. Considering they once unified the Xuanwang realm, they indeed had some remarkable abilities, Zhao Shuyuan sighed. Li Fan fell into deep thought. According to earlier intelligence from the Five Elders Association, this ancient cultivator had been excavated from the ruins of the Purple Heaven sect by the Immortal Alliance. However, the exact identity of this figure was unclear. Moreover, this person seemed critical to the Five Elders Association, prompting them to seek Li Fan's help in investigating. Originally, Li Fan thought the individual might be connected to Zhang Qinmo, but he hadn't expected it to be a remnant of the Xuantian sect. Why was a Dharma king of the Xuantian sect hiding in the Purple Heaven sect? Li Fan was puzzled. Wait, something clicked in Li Fan's mind, and his gaze sharpened. In the illusion realm of the fallen immortal realm, during the quest for the longevity fruit in Ningyuan, Li Fan had learned from Song Hisong, the city steward. About 200 years ago, during the Purple Heaven sect's centennial celebration, the 10 great immortal sects had sent envoys to investigate a wanted criminal hiding within the Purple Heaven sect. The outcome of the investigation was inconclusive. They merely apprehended an inner disciple as a scapegoat. Could it be that the one hiding within the Purple Heaven sect back then was this Dharma king of the Xuantian sect? And the 10 great immortal sects failed to locate them, instead capturing a decoy. Realizing this, Li Fan was shaken. Meanwhile, Zhao Shuyuan observed the subtle changes in Li Fan's expression and continued. The reason the Immortal Alliance went to such great lengths, digging through ruins to find this Dharma king, is related to the Xuantian sealing spirit formation. Zhao Shuyuan paused, studying Li Fan's reaction before continuing. The details aren't clear, but it seems this Dharma King is an essential component for maintaining the formation. At the time, the Immortal Alliance was preparing for war with the Five Elders Association. They placed all their hopes of victory on the Xuantian sealing spirit formation. Naturally, they guarded the Dharma King closely, not allowing any room for error. But strangely, despite their precautions, the information leaked. This ultimate weapon was quickly countered by the Five Elders Association in a very short time. Given the formation's complexity, it's highly unusual. If there wasn't an inside informant, who would believe it? With the formation's intricacy, even a figure like the Immortal Ancestor might not have cracked it so swiftly without prior knowledge. Zhao Shuyuan sighed, and yet, the insider remains hidden. Despite extensive purges within the Immortal Alliance, they've yet to be found. Isn't that peculiar? Indeed, Li Fan agreed, his expression calm but slightly amazed. It makes me wonder, could someone within the Immortal Alliance have deliberately leaked the formation's details to prevent a one-sided war? Li Fan suggested. That's unlikely, too far-fetched, Zhao Shuyuan began, then froze. Although, maybe not impossible, he muttered after a long pause, his face turning serious. Li Fan was left speechless for a moment. By the way, what's the name and appearance of this Dharma King from the Xuantian sect? The Purple Heaven sect. I knew many of their members back in the day, Li Fan inquired. Zhao Shuyuan, still lost in thought, replied absent-mindedly, oh, he shares your family name. I think he's called Li Chen. Li Chen. In an instant, the image of a frail, scholarly young man flashed through Li Fan's mind. He's actually the secretly hidden Dharma King of the Xuantian sect. How is this even possible? Li Fan was utterly shaken. This Li Chen was none other than the person whose body Li Fan had possessed during the fallen immortal realm's Ningyuan longevity fruit incident. An inner disciple of the Purple Heaven sect and junior brother to Zhang Qinmo. But, Li Fan had entered the fallen immortal realm and replaced him many times. Li Fan knew every single detail of Li Chen's memories as if they were his own. Li Chen was just a boy from a humble mountain village. Due to his exceptional talent in cultivation, he was accepted into the Purple Heaven sect. There was absolutely no trace of any memory connected to the Dharma King of the ancient Xuantian sect. There are three possible explanations. 1. The Dharma King is merely a remnant spirit residing within Li Chen's body. When the fallen immortal cast its final glance, reflecting all beings and objects in the world, only the original self of creatures was replicated in the fallen immortal realm. Any other foreign existence in the body would not have been restored. 2. During the Ningyuan longevity fruit event, the Dharma King had not yet occupied Li Chen's body. It wasn't until Li Chen was gravely injured and brought back to the sect by Zhang Qinmo that the Xuantian sect's Dharma King, hidden in the Purple Heaven sect, took the opportunity to possess him. 3. The Dharma King of the Xuantian sect possesses unparalleled cultivation and hides his true nature deeply. Even the omniscient fallen immortal failed to uncover his secret. Thus, what was recreated in the fallen immortal realm was only a superficial form. After a thorough analysis, Li Fan deemed the third possibility to be unlikely. If even a Dharma King on the verge of death could rival the fallen immortal in power, then the overall strength of the Xuantian sect back in its prime would have been unimaginably terrifying. The sect would not have been overthrown by the alliance of the 10 great immortal sects. The fallen immortal realm replicates the real world almost perfectly. Even the trajectory of spiritual energy and the operation of techniques can be mirrored. Residual spirits within the body would surely be detected by an immortal's gaze. So, the most plausible explanation is that after Li Chen fell unconscious, the Xuantian sect's Dharma King seized his body. The Dharma King's actual condition might also be quite poor, barely clinging to life. Having narrowly escaped the pursuit of the 10 great immortal sects, envoys, he continued to hide within the Purple Heaven sect. Over the years, he likely switched hosts multiple times until finally becoming Li Chen. Piecing together various pieces of information from different sources, Li Fan reconstructed a plausible truth. Immediately, he felt a surge of excitement. The Dharma King of the Xuantian sect had existed since the ancient era of immortal cultivation. The secrets he must know would be beyond measure. If Li Fan could perform a soul-searching technique on him. This is absolutely worth trying. When the 10,000 Immortal Alliance discovered him, he was still in slumber, meaning his defenses are likely weak. If I can control him, I could gain not only countless secrets and techniques but also a new identity in the Xuanwang world. No more frequent disguises as a cultivator of the heavenly mechanism sect, which always leave flaws. Li Fan's heart wavered slightly. However, I must not act carelessly, he thought to himself. The Xuantian sect once ruled the heavens, and its Dharma kings were surely at the longevity immortal stage under the old system. Though this Dharma king must have been gravely injured during the Xuantian sect's downfall and has been dormant for so many years, his strength must have diminished considerably. Still, ancient titans like him, who knows what hidden trump cards they might have. I should send and clone to probe first. It's a gamble worth taking. No matter what, it won't be more dangerous than scheming against the heavenly doctor. Countless thoughts raced through Li Fan's mind in an instant. Though his expression barely changed, the subtle shifts in his emotions were noticed by Zhao Shuyuan. With a peculiar look in his eyes, Zhao Shuyuan couldn't help but ask, could it be that you truly know this Li Chen? Li Fan shook his head slightly and quickly replied, acquaintance would be too strong a word. We've merely crossed paths a few times. At the time, I thought he was just an ordinary disciple of the Purple Heaven sect. Who would have thought? You truly can't judge a book by its cover. Li Fan sighed. Zhao Shuyuan could tell that Li Fan wasn't being entirely truthful. But everyone has their secrets, and he had no intention of probing further. Then, why is fellow Taoist investigating the identity of this ancient cultivator in slumber? Zhao Shuyuan asked tentatively. Li Fan cupped his hands and said, I'm simply fulfilling someone else's request. Zhao Shuyuan nodded thoughtfully and said no more. After a brief exchange of pleasantries, just before parting, Li Fan casually asked, by the way, the small medicine king cauldrons the first asked you to excavate earlier, are they still with you? They've long been sold, Zhao Shuyuan replied. Back then, you didn't seem to care about them at all. Why bring it up now? He asked curiously. A sudden whim, just thought I'd ask. Don't overthink it, Li Fan said with a mysterious smile, evading the question before turning to leave the Qinli Hall. He left behind a puzzled Zhao Shuyuan, standing in place with furrowed brows. After leaving, Li Fan first returned to the Tianquan mirror to search for the small medicine king cauldrons. According to Zhao Shuyuan, when the Medicine King sect's ruins were sealed by the 10,000 Immortal Alliance, everything valuable had been taken away. Zhao Shuyuan had only managed to excavate 2 of them. But now, upon checking the marketplace, Li Fan found no fewer than 17 small Medicine King cauldrons for sale. These clearly came from internal leaks within the 10,000 Immortal Alliance. Li Fan was already accustomed to such situations. Without hesitation, he used his vast wealth to purchase every single small medicine king cauldron available. This sudden action instantly attracted the attention of certain individuals. Fellow Taoist Li Fan, was it you who made the move? What secret lies within these small medicine king cauldrons? Have you deduced something again? Zhao Shuyuan, who had just ended their conversation, hurriedly sent inquiries. Guess, Li Fan replied with a smile and ignored the other man's response. Using the sky-shrouding hand technique to conceal himself, Li Fan headed straight for Kangwu Prefecture. He teleported relentlessly without pause. Half a day later, he arrived at the abyss of Kangwu. After purchasing a guidebook for traversing the abyss, he followed the paths remembered from his past life as Xiao Fan, moving downward step by step. He passed through the forest of spirit whispers and the puppet canyon to reach the lost mysterious city buried 100,000 feet underground. After some effort, he finally located the future landing site of the true Medicine King Cauldron. Yes, Li Fan planned to lie in wait here for the falling star to descend. The true Medicine King Cauldron contained numerous cultivators of the Medicine King sect who had been forcibly placed in suspended animation. They were like lambs awaiting slaughter. Read extra chapters on greater than Spirit Stone translation. The immortal ancestor had died. When Chao Sidao realized that he had been reborn into the ancient cultivation world, a time when the 10 great immortal sects dominated the world and the new cultivation method had yet to emerge, a daring thought surfaced in his mind. He would follow the immortal ancestor and become one of the earliest pioneers of the new way of cultivation. At present, the 10 great immortal sects were at their peak. However, knowing the trajectory of the future, Chao Sidao was keenly aware that their seemingly unshakable dominance would crumble before the sweeping tide of the new cultivation method. It wouldn't be long before the new cultivators, trained in a method that allowed them to plunder the heavens and earth, cultivating at an astonishing pace, would rise under the leadership of the immortal ancestor. They would crush the 10 great immortal sects and establish the magnificent 10,000 immortal alliance, destined to rule the Xuanwang realm for eons. In such a grand revolution, the greatest merit lay in supporting the right leader. If Chao Sidao pledged his allegiance to the immortal ancestor before his rise, then when the immortal ancestor eventually ascended to the heavens, Chao Sidao would undoubtedly secure a position within the supreme ruling body of the alliance, the Dharma Transmission Council. This was Chao Sidao's vision, and it was exactly what he acted upon. He abandoned the hard-earned identity of an inner disciple of the Seven-Star Sect, traversing mountains and rivers from the heart of the immortal lands to reach the remote wilderness of Kongyan Marsh. After years of patient waiting, the day finally arrived when the great immortal ancestor, at this time, he was still known as the Dharma Transmission Immortal Venerable, began spreading his teachings. News of the Immortal Venerable sharing his teachings had recently begun to circulate in the surrounding regions. However, the Immortal Venerable's reputation was still modest at this time. Announcing the dissemination of his teachings and blessings to the world was met with skepticism. Few believed him. Before Chao Sidao stood only a dozen or so cultivators who had come out of curiosity. Chao Sidao made sure to secure a seat at the center of the front row, intending to make himself known. Surveying those around him, Chao Sidao realized that these individuals would one day become the key figures who wielded power within the 10,000 Immortal Alliance. His heart began to race. When the Dharma Transmission Immortal Venerable's gaze swept across him, Chao Sidao immediately composed himself, no longer daring to look around. 3 days later, despite the sovereign's teachings being profound, only about 30 cultivators had gathered on the small island within Kongyan Marsh. The Immortal Venerable, however, remained unbothered. Sitting cross-legged on the ground, he began his grand discourse. He spoke of the world of Xuanwang, the laws of immortality, the mysteries of the human body, and the secrets of vital energy. He then elaborated on the intricate connections between the universe and all living beings. His words flowed eloquently, captivating every cultivator present. As the Immortal Venerable continued, celestial phenomena began to manifest in the skies. Golden light illuminated rolling purple clouds arriving from the horizon, creating a divine and majestic scene. Even at night, the island radiated with a never-ending glow of purple and gold, visible from hundreds of miles away. This attracted an increasing number of cultivators who, mesmerized by the spectacle, flocked to the island. Respectful and awestruck, the newcomers settled wherever they could find space, silently regretting their delayed arrival and the missed opportunities to absorb the profound teachings from earlier days. Eventually, the island was teeming with over 10,000 cultivators. At this point, the Immortal Venerable declared, "To ascend to immortality, why beseech the heavens? If the heavens do not grant it, then take it for yourself. To follow the heavens is mundane, to defy the heavens is immortality." Thus, the path of immortality lies in absorbing the spirit of heaven and earth to wield its energy, harnessing the marvels of the heaven and earth to establish a foundation, observing the laws of the heaven and earth to refine the golden core, seizing the essence of creation to form the nascent soul, extracting the marrow of the world to transform into the divine soul, sacrificing the spirit of heaven and earth existence to merge with the Tao, defying the principles of the heavens to achieve longevity immortality. The Venerable then proceeded to elucidate the details of each realm, leaving the gathered cultivators stunned and speechless. So, immortality could be pursued in such a way. Chao Sidao's blood surged with excitement. He knew that these cultivators, relying on this revolutionary method of plundering the heavens and earth, would eventually overthrow the 10 great immortal sects and establish the great 10,000 Immortal Alliance. It felt as though he were a part of history in the making. However, just as the Dharma Transmission Immortal Venerable reached the pivotal point in his discourse, explaining the principle of defying the heavens, a cold voice suddenly reverberated across the skies, interrupting the sovereign. Such deceptive rhetoric! The heavens nurture all things. For cultivators to not repay this debt is already egregious, but to engage in such vile plundering is no different from beasts. The voice boomed like thunder, echoing endlessly. Interrupted suddenly, the cultivators on the island listening to the teachings were naturally both shocked and enraged. Who is this reckless cultivator courting death? Chao Sidao, on the other hand, wore a look of amusement, ready to watch the drama unfold. After all, he knew that the immortal ancestor had dominated the world for thousands of years, practically unrivaled. wasn't the one provoking him seeking death. However, what Chao Sidao inadvertently glimpsed made him feel a vague sense of unease. At this moment, the preaching Immortal Venerable abruptly stood up. His face was filled with solemnity. "May I know the name of this friend?" The so-called 3,000 Great Tao Paths. The Immortal Venerable cupped his hands and was about to speak. But he was rudely interrupted again. Words are pointless. Under the rule of the 10 great immortal sects, anyone spreading heresies must die. With a thunderous roar, the speaker revealed himself. He appeared to be no more than a teenager, clad in shining golden armor, with a red ribbon tied to his head, and wielding a silver spear. He looked less like a cultivator and more like a mortal general. "Remember, the one taking your lives today is Wu, of the Creation sect." As his words ended, the silver spear descended from the heavens. "Arrogant child," the Immortal Venerable snorted coldly, lightly extending 2 fingers of his right hand to block it. Who would have thought? The silver gleam flashed like lightning, piercing through the Immortal Venerable's body in an instant. Then, without losing momentum, it slammed violently into the ground. Boom! In the Immortal Venerable's incredulous gaze, the entire 10,000 Immortal Island turned to dust in an instant. As the massive silver shockwave crushed the island, it also swept through Kongyan Marsh relentlessly. In just a few breaths, the vast Kongyan Marsh no longer had any signs of life. Only the rampant silver serpents continued to dance in the void. Foolishness. Before Chao Sidao's consciousness faded, he only heard Wu's cold snort. And saw the gradually vanishing figure of the immortal ancestor. When he awoke from a pitch-black void again, Chao Sidao was surprised to find himself back at the very start of his rebirth. The outer disciples of the 7-star sect were still anxiously preparing for the inner sect assessment. But this time, entering the inner sect no longer concerned him at all. His mind was filled with countless doubts. Why did the immortal ancestor fall so easily? Who was this, Wu? Why had he never heard of such a person before? Countless questions surged in his heart. Days passed, and Chao Sidao still couldn't come up with a reasonable explanation. However, since the world of his rebirth diverged from the historical trajectory he remembered, he decided he must carefully consider the future. With a figure like Wu around, it seemed unlikely that the 10,000 Immortal Alliance could rise to prominence. Though somewhat regretful, a wise man knows when to yield. In this life, Chao Sidao decisively chose to side with the 10 great immortal sects. But something unexpected happened once more. In his previous life, Wu, who ended the immortal ancestor's life with a single spear, simply did not exist in this life. Without Wu's dramatic feat on the 10,000 Immortal Island, the new teaching spread like wildfire across the entire Xuanwang realm within a few years. It was a vast, unstoppable force. In the war against the 10,000 Immortal Alliance, Chao Sidao, as cannon fodder for the 10 great immortal sects, once again lost his life. Chapter 606. Extra Story, For Me, 1,000 and Million Times, Part 1. The immortal ancestor had died. When Chao Sidao realized that he had been reborn into the ancient cultivation world, a time when the 10 great immortal sects dominated the world and the new cultivation method had yet to emerge, a daring thought surfaced in his mind. He would follow the immortal ancestor and become one of the earliest pioneers of the new way of cultivation. At present, the 10 great immortal sects were at their peak. However, knowing the trajectory of the future, Chao Sidao was keenly aware that their seemingly unshakable dominance would crumble before the sweeping tide of the new cultivation method. It wouldn't be long before the new cultivators, trained in a method that allowed them to plunder the heavens and earth, cultivating at an astonishing pace, would rise under the leadership of the immortal ancestor. They would crush the 10 great immortal sects and establish the magnificent 10,000 Immortal Alliance, destined to rule the Xuanwang realm for eons. In such a grand revolution, the greatest merit lay in supporting the right leader. If Chao Sidao pledged his allegiance to the immortal ancestor before his rise, then when the immortal ancestor eventually ascended to the heavens, Chao Sidao would undoubtedly secure a position within the supreme ruling body of the alliance, the Dharma Transmission Council. This was Chao Sidao's vision, and it was exactly what he acted upon. He abandoned the hard-earned identity of an inner disciple of the 7-star sect, traversing mountains and rivers from the heart of the immortal lands to reach the remote wilderness of Kongyan Marsh. After years of patient waiting, the day finally arrived when the great immortal ancestor, at this time, he was still known as the Dharma Transmission Immortal Venerable, began spreading his teachings. News of the Immortal Venerable sharing his teachings had recently begun to circulate in the surrounding regions. However, the Immortal Venerable's reputation was still modest at this time. Announcing the dissemination of his teachings and blessings to the world was met with skepticism. Few believed him. Before Chao Sidao stood only a dozen or so cultivators who had come out of curiosity. Chao Sidao made sure to secure a seat at the center of the front row, intending to make himself known. Surveying those around him, Chao Sidao realized that these individuals would one day become the key figures who wielded power within the 10,000 Immortal Alliance. His heart began to race. When the Dharma transmission Immortal Venerable's gaze swept across him, Chao Sidao immediately composed himself, no longer daring to look around. 3 days later, despite the sovereign's teachings being profound, only about 30 cultivators had gathered on the small island within Kongyan Marsh. The Immortal Venerable, however, remained unbothered. Sitting cross-legged on the ground, he began his grand discourse. He spoke of the world of Xuanwang, the laws of immortality, the mysteries of the human body, and the secrets of vital energy. He then elaborated on the intricate connections between the universe and all living beings. His words flowed eloquently, captivating every cultivator present. As the Immortal Venerable continued, celestial phenomena began to manifest in the skies. Golden light illuminated rolling purple clouds arriving from the horizon, creating a divine and majestic scene. Even at night, the island radiated with a never-ending glow of purple and gold, visible from hundreds of miles away. This attracted an increasing number of cultivators who, mesmerized by the spectacle, flocked to the island. Respectful and awestruck, the newcomers settled wherever they could find space, silently regretting their delayed arrival and the missed opportunities to absorb the profound teachings from earlier days. Eventually, the island was teeming with over 10,000 cultivators. At this point, the Immortal Venerable declared, "To ascend to immortality, why beseech the heavens? If the heavens do not grant it, then take it for yourself. To follow the heavens is mundane, to defy the heavens is immortality. Thus, the path of immortality lies in absorbing the spirit of heaven and earth to wield its energy, harnessing the marvels of the heaven and earth to establish a foundation, observing the laws of the heaven and earth to refine the golden core, seizing the essence of creation to form the nascent soul, extracting the marrow of the world to transform into the divine soul, sacrificing the spirit of heaven and earth existence to merge with the Tao, defying the principles of the heavens to achieve longevity immortality. The Venerable then proceeded to elucidate the details of each realm, leaving the gathered cultivators stunned and speechless. So, immortality could be pursued in such a way. Chao Sidao's blood surged with excitement. He knew that these cultivators, relying on this revolutionary method of plundering the heavens and earth, would eventually overthrow the 10 great immortal sects and establish the great 10,000 Immortal Alliance. It felt as though he were a part of history in the making. However, just as the Dharma transmission Immortal Venerable reached the pivotal point in his discourse, explaining the principle of defying the heavens, a cold voice suddenly reverberated across the skies, interrupting the sovereign. Such deceptive rhetoric! The heavens nurture all things. For cultivators to not repay this debt is already egregious, but to engage in such vile plundering is no different from beasts. The voice boomed like thunder, echoing endlessly. Interrupted suddenly, the cultivators on the island listening to the teachings were naturally both shocked and enraged. Who is this reckless cultivator courting death? Chao Sidao, on the other hand, wore a look of amusement, ready to watch the drama unfold. After all, he knew that the immortal ancestor had dominated the world for thousands of years, practically unrivaled. Wasn't the one provoking him seeking death? However, what Chao Sidao inadvertently glimpsed made him feel a vague sense of unease. At this moment, the preaching Immortal Venerable abruptly stood up. His face was filled with solemnity. "May I know the name of this friend?" The so-called 3,000 Great Tao Paths. The Immortal Venerable cupped his hands and was about to speak. But he was rudely interrupted again. Words are pointless. Under the rule of the 10 great immortal sects, anyone spreading heresies must die. With a thunderous roar, the speaker revealed himself. He appeared to be no more than a teenager, clad in shining golden armor, with a red ribbon tied to his head, and wielding a silver spear. He looked less like a cultivator and more like a mortal general. "Remember, the one taking your lives today is Wu, of the Creation sect." As his words ended, the silver spear descended from the heavens. "Arrogant child," the Immortal Venerable snorted coldly, lightly extending 2 fingers of his right hand to block it. Who would have thought? The silver gleam flashed like lightning, piercing through the Immortal Venerable's body in an instant. Then, without losing momentum, it slammed violently into the ground. Boom! In the Immortal Venerable's incredulous gaze, the entire 10,000 Immortal Island turned to dust in an instant. As the massive silver shockwave crushed the island, it also swept through Kanyan Marsh relentlessly. In just a few breaths, the vast Kanyan Marsh no longer had any signs of life. Only the rampant silver serpents continued to dance in the void. Foolishness. Before Chao Sidao's consciousness faded, he only heard Wu's cold snort. And saw the gradually vanishing figure of the immortal ancestor. When he awoke from a pitch-black void again, Chao Sidao was surprised to find himself back at the very start of his rebirth. The outer disciples of the Seven-Star Sect were still anxiously preparing for the inner sect assessment. But this time, entering the inner sect no longer concerned him at all. His mind was filled with countless doubts. Why did the immortal ancestor fall so easily? Who was this, Wu? Why had he never heard of such a person before? Countless questions surged in his heart. Days passed, and Chao Sidao still couldn't come up with a reasonable explanation. However, since the world of his rebirth diverged from the historical trajectory he remembered, he decided he must carefully consider the future. With a figure like Wu around, it seemed unlikely that the 10,000 Immortal Alliance could rise to prominence. Though somewhat regretful, a wise man knows when to yield. In this life, Chao Sidao decisively chose to side with the 10 great immortal sects. But something unexpected happened once more. In his previous life, Wu, who ended the immortal ancestor's life with a single spear, simply did not exist in this life. Without Wu's dramatic feat on the 10,000 Immortal Island, the new teaching spread like wildfire across the entire Xuanwang realm within a few years. It was a vast, unstoppable force. In the war against the 10,000 Immortal Alliance, Chao Sidao, as cannon fodder for the 10 great immortal sects, once again lost his life. Why has the course of history in this life returned to the same path again? Awakening once more from the darkness, Chao Sidao clutched his head, overwhelmed by a splitting headache. But he couldn't afford to dwell on it. His mind was flooded with questions as he continuously recalled and compared the events of his past 2 lifetimes. As an insignificant figure swept up in the tides of destiny, he had little agency of his own. He couldn't grasp the full scope of the world's events. However, he was aware of certain key junctures critical enough to alter the trajectory of history. After a thorough comparison, Chao Sidao realized that the world without the existence of the sect of creation Wu aligned with the history in his memory, an immortal venerable transmitting a new cultivation method, igniting a wildfire of reform, overthrowing the decayed 10 great immortal sects, and establishing the 10,000 Immortal Alliance that ruled the Xuanwang realm for millennia. So, was Wu the anomaly? Without Wu, would history return to its rightful path? After a long period of contemplation, Chao Sidao finally arrived at a plausible explanation. This means, in this lifetime, I should first investigate the sect of creation and determine whether this Wu exists before making any decisions. But the sect of creation is one of the prestigious 10 great immortal sects, while I'm just an outer disciple of an insignificant sect. How could I possibly gather any information? Secrets of this magnitude are clearly beyond what my current body can handle. If someone were to notice, they might use soul-searching techniques to uncover my ability to reincarnate endlessly. Chao Sidao, meticulous and familiar with the various means of cultivators, naturally harbored many concerns. Fortunately, he didn't need to dwell on these worries for long. Because after absorbing the memories of the body he now occupied, Chao Sidao was shocked to discover that this lifetime was not set during the early days of the new cultivation method. Instead, it was an unprecedented and bizarre period. In this era, a strange restriction had emerged that made it impossible to cultivate multiple techniques simultaneously. Sects had been eradicated, and only 1 in 10,000 cultivators survived. The surviving cultivators roamed the world alone, distrustful of others, struggling to survive in the wilderness. Chao Sidao didn't know what had happened during this time, nor did he understand the reasons behind the variations in the worlds he reincarnated into. Cautiously, he focused on ensuring his survival and ventured into the ruins of various sects, seeking to piece together the truth of history. It took more than a decade before Chao Sidao finally uncovered the events of that time. The divergence in history occurred during the era of intense conflict between the old and new cultivation methods. In this timeline, the old sects proved surprisingly resilient. Not only did they withstand the seemingly endless armies of the new method, but they also began to reform themselves, incorporating the new techniques. Without the advantage of faster cultivation, the new method practitioners fell behind in terms of techniques, treasures, and mystical arts. They barely managed to hold their ground, relying solely on sheer numbers. The tug-of-war lasted for decades. During this time, both the 10,000 Immortal Alliance and the 10 Great Immortal Sects used every means at their disposal to secure ultimate victory. Masses of ordinary people were forcibly conscripted and taught cultivation methods. After brief training, they were sent to the battlefield, their bodies bound with various restrictions, leaving them no choice but to fight for their survival. It was said that blood soaked every inch of the Xuanwang realm. Even now, traces of those brutal battles remained in the wastelands. The relentless recruitment of cultivator soldiers led to an unprecedented catastrophe. It was a curse of unimaginable horror, the inability to cultivate the same technique together. Anyone practicing the same cultivation method lost their sanity, perceiving one another as mortal enemies. To accelerate their combat readiness, both the 10,000 Immortal Alliance and the 10 Great Immortal Sects had their soldiers practice standardized cultivation techniques. When the calamity struck, chaos consumed the Xuanwang realm in an instant. The situation is the same at the lower levels as it is at the higher levels. The 10 Great Immortal Sects emphasize the inheritance of their sects. Countless individuals follow the same cultivation methods. At this moment, faced with the great calamity, even the reclusive elders of these sects have started wielding their blades against their own disciples. The 10,000 Immortal Alliance values mutual assistance. Everyone regards the teachings of immortal ancestor cultivation techniques as the foundation of mentorship, and most members are independent cultivators from various unorthodox paths. To overcome the ancient sects with thousands of years of inheritance, it is essential to gather the wisdom of the vast majority of cultivators and continuously deduce and refine a universal cultivation method that could serve most of the Alliance's members. This method, called Heavenly Net Divine Art, was originally the cornerstone of the 10,000 Immortal Alliance's unity and mutual aid. However, at this moment, it has turned into a terrifying death sentence. This period of darkness left a chilling impression on posterity. The conclusion of the Great War was naturally the mutual annihilation of both sides, leaving the Xuanwang realm barren and desolate. Thousands of years later, a few mortals who had miraculously survived stumbled upon remnants of ancient cultivation texts amidst the ruins, rekindling the civilization of cultivation. As for the leaders of the 10 Great Immortal Sects, the pinnacle powerhouses of the Xuanwang realm, their ultimate fate remains unknown. Throughout his life, Chao Sidao delved into various ruins, seeking traces of these legendary figures. Unfortunately, on one such occasion, he was fatally wounded by a hidden mechanism and passed away with regret. When he awoke again, the first thing he did was explore the memories of his new body. As expected, the world had changed yet again. A terrifying plague had emerged, spreading through spiritual energy. Once cultivators were infected, they experienced symptoms akin to mortals suffering from a deadly illness. No matter the elixirs or divine techniques, nothing could completely cure this affliction. While not fatal, the disease had a profound impact on cultivators. When spiritual energy was circulated intensely, they would involuntarily cough violently. Ignoring the discomfort and forcibly continuing could even result in fainting. This plague persisted for over a decade, during which conflicts in the Xuanwang realm nearly ceased. It wasn't that the once competitive cultivators had changed their ways, rather, their physical capabilities had subtly deteriorated over time. Ridiculously, incidents such as golden core cultivators breaking their legs while walking or nascent soul cultivators fainting mid-flight and crashing to the ground became alarmingly frequent. Chao Sidao's current body, which belonged to a golden core cultivator, felt even weaker than an ordinary qi condensation cultivator in his memory. In this world, Chao Sidao lived for 60 years, nearing the end of his life. Due to the plague, cultivators had been weakened to their limits. In contrast, mundane martial artists with robust vitality were now capable of subduing Dao integration cultivators. The path of immortality had declined, while martial arts flourished. Thus, the remaining cultivators called this plague, Immortal's demise. In another lifetime, Chao Sidao returned to a world where the new and old cultivation methods clashed. However, war was no longer the focus. When the battle between the 10 Great Immortal Sects and the 10,000 Immortal Alliance was at its peak, an eerie mirage of ruins suddenly appeared in the sky. A solitary figure stood within the ruins, seemingly gazing silently at the beings of the Xuanwang realm below. The entire world trembled slightly, a strange phenomenon that naturally caught the attention of the cultivators. Both sides decided to temporarily cease fighting to investigate the mysterious apparition. After thorough research, the 10,000 Immortals Alliance and the 10 Great Immortal Sects reached the same conclusion. The ruins above the sky possessed an immense gravitational pull, strong enough to gradually draw the entire Xuanwang realm upward. The tremors the cultivators had recently sensed were the initial signs of the Xuanwang realm being drawn toward the ruins. Calculations revealed that in no more than a century, the Xuanwang realm would collapse into the ruins, resulting in the death of all its inhabitants. This revelation caused an uproar. Faced with the threat of extinction, war was temporarily set aside. The Five Elders Association and the 10,000 Immortal Alliance formed an unprecedented alliance to find a solution. Ultimately, they devised a plan called Reversal of Xuanwang. This plan aimed to construct tens of thousands of obelisks across the Xuanwang realm. The obelisks, thrust, would push the entire Xuanwang realm away from the gravitational pull of the ruins. Initially, the plan seemed promising. The first completed obelisk did slightly slow the Xuanwang realm's upward movement, proving the feasibility of the plan. However, the optimistic assumptions about human nature soon proved naive. The alliance fell apart within a mere decade, plunging the Xuanwang realm into unprecedented chaos. The massive project required contributions from every cultivator, which clashed with the inherently independent nature of cultivators. Rumors began to spread, claiming the apparition in the sky was an elaborate hoax created by the 10,000 Immortals Alliance and the Five Elders Association to enslave all cultivators. Some even claimed the obelisks were part of a nefarious formation designed to implant a soul-binding restriction in every cultivator's sea of consciousness. Despite efforts to suppress these rumors, suspicion lingered, and belief in the conspiracy grew stronger. The reversal of Xuanwang plan faced immense resistance, and reports emerged of places where cultivators were forcibly controlled to build the obelisks, adding fuel to the conspiracy theory. Rebellion broke out across the Xuanwang realm, escalating rapidly. Then came an incident that pushed the situation to its breaking point. One night, an intense white light burst forth from the direction of the Heavenly Sword sect, illuminating the entire Xuanwang realm. Cultivators could vaguely see a massive sword rise from the ground, piercing through the heavens. At the same time, as the shadow of the ruins in the sky twisted, a black void appeared in midair. In the next second, under the watchful eyes of all the cultivators, the giant sword vanished without a trace. Darkness once again descended upon the world. Initially, the cultivators were somewhat puzzled. But how could such a matter remain hidden? Soon, everyone understood. One of the 10 great immortal sects, the Heavenly Sword sect, had secretly forged a void-breaking divine weapon, tore through the void, and escaped. Traitors! Shameful! For a moment, curses filled the air. Yet, it also made the cultivators wonder, could it be that the ruins in the sky were real? Amidst this uncertainty, the unrest across the region subsided, and cultivators began to actively construct obelisks. However, they quickly realized something was amiss. Orders from the upper echelons of the 10 great immortal sects and the 10,000 Immortal Alliance became increasingly rare. In fact, it had been a long time since anyone had seen any influential cultivators in person. In their unease, they banded together to visit the residences of the 10 great immortal sects, only to find them long abandoned. The remaining formations merely issued orders periodically. Feeling deceived and abandoned, the cultivators were filled with rage but had no one to direct it toward. They could only vent their anger on those who had initially spread the rumors. Yet in truth, they themselves had fanned the flames of those rumors. Now, who could they blame? The upper echelons of the Xuanwang realm had collectively fled, leaving behind no instructions on how to operate the obelisks. Left with no choice but to await death, the cultivators watched as the image of the ruins in the sky grew larger. Gradually, despair drove them into madness. The slaughter began. Amid this farcical chaos, Cao Sidao watched coldly from the sidelines. As the Xuanwang realm quaked and gradually disintegrated, he too ended his life in this world. In the cycles of rebirth that followed, Cao Sidao experienced all kinds of mysterious worlds. For instance, worlds where the 10,000 Immortal Alliance and the 10 great immortal sects did not exist. Instead, the Xuanwang realm was unified under a supreme heavenly sovereign. From birth, every person was required to cultivate specific techniques. The cultivation they accumulated would be exchanged for essential survival resources. Or worlds where the immortal net enveloped everything, monitoring every action of cultivators. However, the same immortal net allowed cultivators to earn contribution points to exchange for techniques and treasures. It even provided access to other cultivation worlds for conquest, earning massive military merits. Despite his average aptitude, Chao Sidao tried his best to live in every lifetime. Yet he remained an ordinary person among the masses, leaving no mark in history. Each time, he experienced a mundane birth and an ordinary death. And so, after countless reincarnations, he returned to the same world where he had first awakened. An inner disciple of the Seven-Star Sect, the Immortal Ancestor transmitting Dharma from Kangyun Marsh. However, after witnessing countless cycles of destruction and resurgence, Chao Sidao vaguely understood his current predicament. Thus, he refrained from any drastic actions, behaving instead like an outsider, quietly observing the world's changes. This time, the sect of creation's Wu did not appear. The preaching Immortal Ancestor successfully completed the sermon. But as the new techniques began to spread, the 10 great immortal sects immediately issued an extermination order. The new techniques were labeled heretical, and any practitioners were to be executed without mercy. It was said that this decree came from the great Tao sect's Ji. As a result, the new techniques met their demise before achieving any great feats. Even the preaching Immortal Venerable himself died tragically under relentless pursuit. Witnessing all this, Chao Sidao seemed to understand something. In the countless cycles of reincarnation that followed, he never again encountered Ji in this world. So, it's all for these people. Most people in this world are ordinary. But there are always a few extraordinary individuals. These individuals, through their exceptional talents, could even alter the course of history. For example, using one's own strength to research a medicine method that completely solves the plague of deceased immortals' demise. And also, after the 10 great immortal sects and 10,000 immortals alliance abandoned all cultivators, standing up to reverse the tide, reuniting everyone. Eventually, this person reignited the reversal of Xuanwang clan and saved the entire world, the Immortal Emperor. Through countless reincarnations, Chao Sidao watched these geniuses rise and fall. His heart grew colder. He had realized the truth about the world he was in. The various divergent worlds were merely tests to select those with exceptional talent, while the rest of the world's beings were nothing more than background props. But, what about himself? Why was he able to retain his memories across countless reincarnations? Chao Sidao didn't know the reason, but he understood that this was his only leverage to escape this false world. TLN, oof. This took a long time to translate, hope you guys enjoyed it. And also do give your thoughts and theories on what's going on here. Chapter 606.1, Extra Story, For Me, 1,000 and Million Times, Part 1. The Immortal Ancestor had died. When Chao Sidao realized that he had been reborn into the ancient cultivation world, a time when the 10 great immortal sects dominated the world and the new cultivation method had yet to emerge, a daring thought surfaced in his mind. He would follow the Immortal Ancestor and become one of the earliest pioneers of the new way of cultivation. At present, the 10 great immortal sects were at their peak. However, knowing the trajectory of the future, Chao Sidao was keenly aware that their seemingly unshakable dominance would crumble before the sweeping tide of the new cultivation method. It wouldn't be long before the new cultivators, trained in a method that allowed them to plunder the heavens and earth, cultivating at an astonishing pace, would rise under the leadership of the Immortal Ancestor. They would crush the 10 great immortal sects and establish the magnificent 10,000 Immortal Alliance, destined to rule the Xuanwang realm for eons. In such a grand revolution, the greatest merit lay in supporting the right leader. If Chao Sidao pledged his allegiance to the Immortal Ancestor before his rise, then when the Immortal Ancestor eventually ascended to the heavens, Chao Sidao would undoubtedly secure a position within the supreme ruling body of the Alliance, the Dharma Transmission Council. This was Chao Sidao's vision. And it was exactly what he acted upon. He abandoned the hard-earned identity of an inner disciple of the Seven-Star Sect, traversing mountains and rivers from the heart of the immortal lands to reach the remote wilderness of Kangyun Marsh. After years of patient waiting, the day finally arrived when the great Immortal Ancestor, at this time, he was still known as the Dharma Transmission Immortal Venerable, began spreading his teachings. News of the Immortal Venerable sharing his teachings had recently begun to circulate in the surrounding regions. However, the Immortal Venerable's reputation was still modest at this time. Announcing the dissemination of his teachings and blessings to the world was met with skepticism. Few believed him. Before Chao Sidao stood only a dozen or so cultivators who had come out of curiosity. Chao Sidao made sure to secure a seat at the center of the front row, intending to make himself known. Surveying those around him, Chao Sidao realized that these individuals would one day become the key figures who wielded power within the 10,000 Immortal Alliance. His heart began to race. When the Dharma transmission Immortal Venerable's gaze swept across him, Chao Sidao immediately composed himself, no longer daring to look around. 3 days later, despite the sovereign's teachings being profound, only about 30 cultivators had gathered on the small island within Kanyan Marsh. The Immortal Venerable, however, remained unbothered. Sitting cross-legged on the ground, he began his grand discourse. He spoke of the world of Xuanwang, the laws of immortality, the mysteries of the human body, and the secrets of vital energy. He then elaborated on the intricate connections between the universe and all living beings. His words flowed eloquently, captivating every cultivator present. As the Immortal Venerable continued, celestial phenomena began to manifest in the skies. Golden light illuminated rolling purple clouds arriving from the horizon, creating a divine and majestic scene. Even at night, the island radiated with a never-ending glow of purple and gold, visible from hundreds of miles away. This attracted an increasing number of cultivators who, mesmerized by the spectacle, flocked to the island. Respectful and awestruck, the newcomers settled wherever they could find space, silently regretting their delayed arrival and the missed opportunities to absorb the profound teachings from earlier days. Eventually, the island was teeming with over 10,000 cultivators. At this point, the Immortal Venerable declared, "To ascend to immortality, why beseech the heavens? If the heavens do not grant it, then take it for yourself. To follow the heavens is mundane, to defy the heavens is immortality." Thus, the path of immortality lies in absorbing the spirit of heaven and earth to wield its energy, harnessing the marvels of the heaven and earth to establish a foundation, observing the laws of the heaven and earth to refine the golden core, seizing the essence of creation to form the nascent soul, extracting the marrow of the world to transform into the divine soul, sacrificing the spirit of heaven and earth existence to merge with the Tao, defying the principles of the heavens to achieve longevity immortality. The Venerable then proceeded to elucidate the details of each realm, leaving the gathered cultivators stunned and speechless. So, immortality could be pursued in such a way. Chao Sidao's blood surged with excitement. He knew that these cultivators, relying on this revolutionary method of plundering the heavens and earth, would eventually overthrow the 10 great immortal sects and establish the great 10,000 Immortal Alliance. It felt as though he were a part of history in the making. However, just as the Dharma transmission Immortal Venerable reached the pivotal point in his discourse, explaining the principle of defying the heavens, a cold voice suddenly reverberated across the skies, interrupting the sovereign. Such deceptive rhetoric! The heavens nurture all things. For cultivators to not repay this debt is already egregious, but to engage in such vile plundering is no different from beasts. The voice boomed like thunder, echoing endlessly. Interrupted suddenly, the cultivators on the island listening to the teachings were naturally both shocked and enraged. Who is this reckless cultivator courting death? Chao Sidao, on the other hand, wore a look of amusement, ready to watch the drama unfold. After all, he knew that the immortal ancestor had dominated the world for thousands of years, practically unrivaled. Wasn't the one provoking him seeking death? However, what Chao Sidao inadvertently glimpsed made him feel a vague sense of unease. At this moment, the preaching Immortal Venerable abruptly stood up. His face was filled with solemnity. "May I know the name of this friend?" The so-called 3,000 Great Tao Paths. The Immortal Venerable cupped his hands and was about to speak. But he was rudely interrupted again. Words are pointless. Under the rule of the 10 great immortal sects, anyone spreading heresies must die. With a thunderous roar, the speaker revealed himself. He appeared to be no more than a teenager, clad in shining golden armor, with a red ribbon tied to his head, and wielding a silver spear. He looked less like a cultivator and more like a mortal general. "Remember, the one taking your lives today is Wu, of the Creation Sect." As his words ended, the silver spear descended from the heavens. "Arrogant child!" The Immortal Venerable snorted coldly, lightly extending 2 fingers of his right hand to block it. Who would have thought? The silver gleam flashed like lightning, piercing through the Immortal Venerable's body in an instant. Then, without losing momentum, it slammed violently into the ground. Boom! In the Immortal Venerable's incredulous gaze, the entire 10,000 Immortal Island turned to dust in an instant. As the massive silver shockwave crushed the island, it also swept through Kanyan Marsh relentlessly. In just a few breaths, the vast Kanyan Marsh no longer had any signs of life. Only the rampant silver serpents continued to dance in the void. Foolishness. Before Chao Sidao's consciousness faded, he only heard Wu's cold snort. And saw the gradually vanishing figure of the immortal ancestor. When he awoke from a pitch-black void again, Chao Sidao was surprised to find himself back at the very start of his rebirth. The outer disciples of the Seven-Star Sect were still anxiously preparing for the inner sect assessment. But this time, entering the inner sect no longer concerned him at all. His mind was filled with countless doubts. Why did the immortal ancestor fall so easily? Who was this, Wu? Why had he never heard of such a person before? Countless questions surged in his heart. Days passed, and Chao Sidao still couldn't come up with a reasonable explanation. However, since the world of his rebirth diverged from the historical trajectory he remembered, he decided he must carefully consider the future. With a figure like Wu around, it seemed unlikely that the 10,000 Immortal Alliance could rise to prominence. Though somewhat regretful, a wise man knows when to yield. In this life, Chao Sidao decisively chose to side with the 10 great immortal sects. But something unexpected happened once more. In his previous life, Wu, who ended the immortal ancestor's life with a single spear, simply did not exist in this life. Without Wu's dramatic feat on the 10,000 Immortal Island, the new teaching spread like wildfire across the entire Xuanwang realm within a few years. It was a vast, unstoppable force. In the war against the 10,000 Immortal Alliance, Chao Sidao, as cannon fodder for the 10 great immortal sects, once again lost his life. What is real, and what is false? Having traversed so many worlds, each vibrant face, every heroic or tragic tale, rivers, lakes, seas, and mountain breezes, love and hatred, obsessions with immortality, heroes and cowards, saints and sinners. Are these all illusions? At first, Chao Sidao was confused. He wondered, if all worldly matters are mere illusions, what meaning remains in the lives of the myriad beings deceived by this world? Their heartfelt desires, their painstaking pursuit of divine techniques, treasures, and realms of cultivation. When time resets, it all begins again. Even death, which they so fear, is not the end, but the start of something new. In one lifetime, two souls might share a deep friendship, only to become strangers in the next. What a sorrowful reality this is. In his bewilderment, Chao Sidao lost interest in everything. Despairing, he began spreading the truth that the world was false. He thought this would attract the attention of the observers beyond the skies, bringing him liberation. To his surprise, no one believed him. Instead, they mocked him as a madman. Even when he exhausted himself explaining the truth, people responded impatiently. Why don't you see if my sword is real or not? When annoyed, they even sent sword lights his way, severing his legs. At that moment, Chao Sidao noticed the indifference in their eyes. There was no sympathy, only glee at his suffering. In a world rife with madness, why would the observers beyond care? After this realization, Chao Sidao gave up on exposing the grand conspiracy. He adjusted his mindset and sought to blend into each world. Abandoning the dream of being a savior, focused instead on finding a way to survive. In this false world, escape was bound to be extraordinarily difficult. Initially, Chao Sidao was at a loss. But soon, he found a path. He stopped openly proclaiming that the world was false. Instead, he wrote fictional tales, narrating the story of someone living within an immortal artifact called the traveling horse lantern. Experiencing countless fleeting and illusory cultivation worlds. 1. With his vast experience across numerous civilizations, the grandeur of his depictions attracted many cultivators' attention. As the tale spread, some cultivators began discussing whether the world they lived in was real. Inevitably, discussions also turned to, what would one do if they discovered the world was false? If falsehoods can masquerade as truth, it means the laws of this false world must mirror those of the true world outside. To construct a flawless world framework, such an achievement is akin to creation itself. If so, the line between real and false blurs. Indeed, even if the beings within are false, the foundation of the world's operation might not be. Someone mentioned an artifact called the Stone of Tao Deviation, in the Tian sect. It was said that within its every instant, countless worlds evolved and perished. What might such fleeting worlds look like? Through collective wisdom, the cultivators' discussions illuminated a path for Chao Sidao. From then on, his purpose became clear. In each lifetime, he no longer sought cultivation or realms of power but delved into formations, restrictions, and simulation techniques. Though cultivation could not carry over between reincarnations, memories could. Chao Sidao believed that, with patient accumulation, he would eventually uncover the flaws in this false world. The idea was beautiful, but execution was fraught with challenges. Initially, his proficiency in these niche arts advanced rapidly. From ignorance, he quickly grasped the basics. But when he sought mastery, he encountered the immense monopoly over knowledge in the cultivation world. Ordinary sects only taught the most rudimentary techniques. Even in the 10,000 Immortal Alliance, information on these topics was scarce. True expertise could only be found in the 10 great immortal sects. But how could someone of average aptitude gain entry? This was true even in ancient times, let alone in the post-cataclysmic wasteland of sect ruins. Only in rare worlds, like those governed by the Immortal Net or under the unified rule of the Immortal Alliance, did conditions exist for proper study. Despite the hurdles, Chao Sidao believed that, over enough time, his gradual progress would lead him to a method of escaping this world. But, after experiencing his 9,999th world, he did not awaken in a new world. Instead, he found himself in a vast, blue ocean. There, he witnessed an unforgettable sight. Countless souls, packed tightly together, drifted. From above, one could vaguely see sleeping faces. In the ocean, whirlpools churned, tossing millions of souls about. Some collided and shattered, dissolving into the sea. Others absorbed fragmented remnants, reforming into something purer. A sharp pain, like a needle, stirred in Chao Sidao's mind, making him dizzy with agony. What horrified him most was realizing that certain memories within his soul were vanishing amidst the sea's resentment-filled waves. Despair crept in, and Chao Sidao lost consciousness. When his true self awakened again, it was after countless reincarnations. He regained clarity, as suddenly as before. Though most of his memories were lost, fragments of knowledge about the false world, the sea of resentful souls, and scattered insights into formations remained deeply etched in his soul. It seems that to prevent other souls from awakening memories of reincarnation like I have, there is a periodic cleansing process conducted on us. In each cleansing, I lose most of my memories. If I accumulate knowledge too slowly, I will never be able to grasp the method to escape from here. After careful calculation, Chao Sidao reached this conclusion. Even so, he did not give up easily. Having seen so much, Chao Sidao had come to understand one principle: if there are enough iterations, then even the most extraordinary things can happen. Just like himself, by all accounts, he shouldn't be able to inherit and retain the memories of each reincarnation. Yet it happened anyway. Chao Sidao lay low and waited. After enduring countless cleansings in the sea of resentful souls, he finally encountered an opportunity to break free. It was a highly developed world called Eternal Immortal Realm. In this world, not only was the average lifespan extraordinarily long, thousands of years even without cultivation, but there was also a great entity known as the Immortal Spirit Tower. The Immortal Spirit Towers were scattered across every corner of the world, continuously emitting pure spiritual energy day and night. More critically, any knowledge, cultivation techniques, formations, alchemy, pill crafting. Everything you could imagine could be found, studied, and accessed within the Immortal Spirit Tower without limitation. Gazing at the vast ocean of information within the Immortal Spirit Tower, Chao Sidao trembled uncontrollably. He understood that the method to escape was hidden somewhere within. Thus, Chao Sidao devoted himself tirelessly to studying. He lived in the Eternal Immortal Realm for 3,658 years without ever stepping away from the Immortal Spirit Tower. Although he was still far from uncovering the false world, he had finally glimpsed a sliver of hope. After experiencing thousands of reincarnations and waking up from yet another cleansing, Chao Sidao was thrilled to discover that, perhaps because his soul had grown more resilient, he had lost far fewer memories this time compared to before. This gave him renewed confidence. He continued to accumulate knowledge and insights, waiting for the next time the Eternal Immortal Realm would appear. When Chao Sidao arrived at the Eternal Immortal Realm for the 9th time, near the end of his life, he finally uncovered the secret of his world. It was a false world, constructed around a certain mysterious artifact of deduction. Most of the living beings within this world were virtual constructs. Only a small fraction had real souls. And Chao Sidao was one of those rare true souls among millions. Deductions have their limits. This also means that the timeline of this world has gaps. Each smallest gap is an opportunity for me to escape. Of course, to avoid detection, the best time to escape is during a world reboot. Standing atop the Immortal Spirit Tower, gazing at the sky above, Chao Sidao silently resolved to act. He spent the remainder of his life preparing. When his life finally ended, as he sank into darkness, Chao Sidao awoke from his slumber. He sensed a fleeting opportunity, like a thread, breaking through the boundary. In his mind, he had envisioned the outside world tens of thousands of times. He had even imagined confronting the possible observers. But what Chao Sidao never expected was that the so-called outside world would be so cold and vast. His once mighty soul, which he thought invincible, was on the verge of collapse under the assault of this icy expanse. It seemed like he would disintegrate entirely in the next moment. To make matters worse, the halo he had escaped from began emitting an alarming sound. Drifting aimlessly in the void, Chao Sidao observed his surroundings in confusion. A museum. He fell silent. It turned out that his world was nothing more than an exhibit. He vaguely sensed several powerful presences rapidly approaching. Despite the vastness of the heavens and earth, there was no place for him to hide. For the first time, Chao Sidao experienced true despair. At that moment, he noticed a human skull in the center of the museum. It sat there quietly, seemingly gazing at him. From this skull, Chao Sidao felt an indescribable warmth. While the entire world rejected him, it exuded the greatest goodwill it could muster. It was like a mother's embrace, moving Chao Sidao to tears. Thus, as his soul was about to dissipate, Chao Sidao used the last of his strength to dive into the skull. One traveling horse lantern Zumadang is also called zoetrope in English, which some of you might know as a pre-film animation device that produces the illusion of motion, by displaying a sequence of drawings or photographs showing progressive phases of that motion. Under normal circumstances, the dormant cultivators inside the Medicine King True Cauldron would be protected by the dream of spring and autumn formation, making it considerably challenging for Li Fan to achieve his objectives. However, the forced detachment from the Immortal ruins had somewhat disrupted the formation's effectiveness. More importantly, Li Fan was aware that a Medicine King sect cultivator named Lingu Chong had not fully integrated into the dream of spring and autumn formation. The room he occupied was not completely sealed, a small gap remained. If Li Fan could access the memories within Lingu Chang's mind, the Medicine King True Cauldron would be virtually defenseless against him. As for the cultivators at the nascent soul stage or higher, Li Fan planned to leave them undisturbed, allowing them to remain in slumber. For those below the nascent soul stage, if necessary, he could use his insect binding, divine ability to suppress them one by one. Despite the fact that these disciples of the Medicine King sect carried various magical artifacts and pills, such external items were of little significance to Li Fan in his current state. What truly captured his interest was the Medicine King Cauldron itself, capable of traversing the void, as well as a set of navigational markers within the sect that could lead to another cultivation realm. Even with the existence of the Immortal ruins, escape from the Xuanwang realm is currently impossible. Yet one day, I will leave this place, he thought. Having control of those markers is a prudent step for the future. Another reason for Li Fan's arduous journey was his desire to witness the Immortal ruins firsthand. Raising his gaze to the sky, he calmed his thoughts and awaited the arrival of the Medicine King True Cauldron. While waiting, he observed the unique, immortal suppressing force of the Kangwu Abyss, marveling at the wonders of creation. Unlike restrictions or formations that merely weakened a cultivator's strength, the immortal suppressing force seemed to proportionally scale down one's cultivation level. With his current nascent soul early stage cultivation, although his strength seemed unrestricted, he could only manifest power equivalent to that of the golden core stage. How fascinating! It's as if a mortal entered the land of giants, unchanged in stature, yet, relative to everything around them, reduced to a mere, small person. While Li Fan was lost in thought, the ruins of a nearby structure, as though stirred by an unseen wind, began creaking and slowly moving toward his position. Without warning, the ruins appeared animated, as if imbued with life, exuding a sinister aura. Li Fan frowned slightly but refrained from destroying the ruins. Instead, he chose to evade them. As the broken remnants brushed past him, Li Fan's gaze sharpened. With a flash, he landed atop one of the stone pillars. The pillar, weathered by countless ages, bore carvings that had become nearly indistinct. Despite its condition, thanks to his mastery of the transformation Tao, Divine One, Li Fan could mentally reconstruct its original form. The faint, fragmented patterns on the pillar seemed eerily familiar to him. This is. His eyes lit up with intrigue. Comparing the markings before him with his memories, he found them to match perfectly. Looking around at the sprawling ruins of the lost city, Li Fan was filled with astonishment. Are these buildings perhaps all from within the mist? In the mysterious domain where Li Fan obtained the chaos character formula, he had once seen 12 large ruins. The patterns on those ruins, structures were identical to those on the stone pillar before him. He recalled the origins of the Kangwu Abyss, how an entire province's mountains and rivers had vanished, leaving only this abyss shaped like a giant footprint. Peering into the abyss's depths, he saw only darkness, endless and unfathomable. Does the Kangwu Abyss connect to the depths of the white mist? In ancient times, the Xuanwang realm had no devouring origin white mist. Now, the mist separates the world. Where did it come from? Who were those tragic, fallen cultivators I encountered within the mist? Questions surged in Li Fan's mind, unanswered. Before he could ponder further, a meteor streaked across the night sky, momentarily illuminating the heavens. It's here. Looking up, Li Fan saw the fiery streak descending straight toward his location. An inexplicable sense of foreboding arose within him, part terror, part confrontation with an unstoppable calamity. His body trembled slightly, reacting to the lingering aura of the immortal ruins emanating from the recently freed, Medicine King True Cauldron. Moving a bit away from the landing point, Li Fan kept his eyes fixed on the fiery meteor. The cauldron descended rapidly, reaching the ground within moments, plunging into the depths of the Kangwu Abyss. As it entered the abyss, its speed slowed, and the flames around it dimmed. Sensing the aura of the immortal ruins, the abyss's denizens instinctively scattered, clearing a path. Finally, the Medicine King True Cauldron came to rest in its former position from the previous era. After emitting a faint distress signal to the outside world, the cauldron gradually became transparent, vanishing into the air. Li Fan waited patiently until the immortal ruins aura dissipated entirely before controlling the little Medicine King Cauldron to enter. With knowledge gained from Xiao Heng and the others' exploration in his previous life, he navigated effortlessly to Linggu Chang's slightly ajar door. Inside, Linggu Chang lay on the floor, deep in slumber. Also at the nascent soul early stage, but Li Fan narrowed his eyes slightly as the phantom of the five elements cave heaven emerged behind him. The power of the cave heaven domain descended like chains, restraining Linggu Chang. After confiscating all items from Linggu Chang, Li Fan mobilized his strength. Moments later, before Linggu Chang could scream in agony, his body was crushed into fine dust under the immense power of the cave heaven. However, the nascent soul within his dantian remained completely unharmed under Li Fan's precise control. With his body destroyed, the sleeping Linggu Chang woke up instantly. Seeing his tiny purple infant-like body, he immediately realized what had happened. Who exactly are you? Linggu Chang stared at Li Fan, half in hatred and half in fear. Li Fan responded with a flash of purple lightning before Linggu Chang's eyes. The Purple Heaven Sect. Linggu Chang's words were filled with disbelief. In the next moment, he lost consciousness and fainted. After thoroughly absorbing Linggu Chang's memories, Li Fan waved his sleeve and temporarily sealed Linggu Chang's nascent soul within his cave heaven. He continued deeper into the Medicine King True Cauldron, arriving at the entrance to the Gate of Life and Death, where he began to contemplate. The Gate of Life and Death cannot be breached, not even by a Tao integration expert. Only by cultivating the true teachings of the Medicine King sect's Longevity and Lifespan Sutra and manifesting the Longevity Green Energy, can one reverse the gates of life and death in an instant and enter within. Longevity and Lifespan Sutra, a Tao integration cultivation method. For an ordinary cultivator, obtaining a Tao integration technique would be enough to leave them sleepless with excitement. However, Li Fan remained indifferent. Although Longevity and Lifespan Sutra was indeed a Tao integration method, its cultivation focused on altruism, healing the sick, and saving lives. Saving others is saving oneself. The more people one saves, the faster the cultivation progresses. Even breaking through bottlenecks requires meeting specific rescue quotas. This technique had low compatibility with Li Fan and no necessity for him to switch to it. Still, as a Tao integration method, its value was undeniably high. By exterminating everyone in the Medicine King sect, this technique would become Li Fan's exclusive possession. But there was no need for such measures. The Medicine King sect members had other, more significant uses. The current trouble was that too many people were cultivating the Longevity and Lifespan Sutra, a total of 462. When Li Fan tried to cultivate this technique, his spiritual energy seemed completely blocked, with no reaction at all. After pondering for a moment, Li Fan came up with an idea. Using Linggu Chang's memories, he located the quarters of some Golden Core disciples of the Medicine King sect. Breaking in, he forcibly extracted portions of their longevity green energy. By fusing these energies, Li Fan formed an energy body. He separated a strand of his consciousness into the green energy body, stretching and adapting for a while. The longevity green energy keeps dissipating and won't last long. However, it should suffice. With a thought, the energy body condensed into a green nascent soul form. Li Fan plunged headlong into the wall of life and death. Passing through a gray membrane, he found himself in a space that seemed identical to the exterior of the Medicine King True Cauldron. This illusion was due to the transparent interior walls of the Medicine King Cauldron. Within the space were two skeletons, one standing and one lying on the ground. The standing one must be Lu Rushan, the one on the ground should be Elder Huang. To escape the immortal ruins, Lu Rushan had no choice but to sacrifice the life essence of some sect members. Recalling his past life's knowledge, Li Fan mused to himself. Just bones left, surely, they're not still alive. Li Fan cautiously approached Lu Rushan's remains. As he reached the skeleton, a phantom suddenly appeared beside him. Startled, Li Fan quickly realized it was merely a projection without any life force. The longevity green energy leaking from his body was absorbed by the phantom. As if completing some sort of verification, the phantom eventually spoke. Disciples of the Medicine King sect, heed my words. If you are seeing this image, I have likely perished. I was wrong. I foresaw the arrival of the great calamity but did not expect something even more terrifying above our Xuanwang realm. The 10 great immortal sects knew everything yet left us to die. This enmity is irreconcilable, but remember, the 10 sects are too powerful to confront directly. After returning to the Xuanwang realm, take refuge in the Valley of Longevity and preserve your strength. Act cautiously after the calamity subsides. After my death, my son Lu Yihang will temporarily serve as sect master, supported by the elders. Once he breaks through to soul transformation, he may formally assume the position. In critical times of life and death, internal strife is unacceptable. The phantom recited Lu Rushan's will mechanically. Li Fan stood quietly, listening. Long after the message concluded, the phantom dissolved into starlight, leaving behind a glowing, diamond-shaped crystal. Li Fan knew this was the control core of the Medicine King Cauldron. Originally intended for Lu Yihang, it now belonged to the prescient Li Fan. Using the control core with his energy body, Li Fan opened the wall of life and death and entered the main control room. After 7 days of refining, he gained control over the Medicine King True Cauldron. Although many advanced functions were temporarily unusable without longevity green energy, most basic features were operational. Li Fan reviewed the images recorded by the Medicine King True Cauldron. They matched what Xiaoheng and others had seen in his previous life. In the boundless void, the Xuanwang realm's light sphere appeared insignificantly small, while the immortal ruins above threatened to devour everything. The images continued. The Medicine King Cauldron, unable to resist, fell toward the immortal ruins despite the light radiating from its surface. Drawing closer to the immortal ruins, its collapse seemed inevitable. At that moment, countless glowing particles emerged from the cauldron, seemingly granting it infinite power. Amid resounding roars, the cauldron changed its trajectory. Yet Li Fan's focus remained on the recorded images of the immortal ruins. Due to the proximity, he discerned a clearer view of the ruins' outline. The desolate land was strewn with remnants of destruction. Amid the ruins stood a towering figure silently gazing downward. It was as if he had glimpsed the presence of a higher dimensional being, one that exuded an inherent oppressive aura. The moment the figure appeared, Li Fan's heart began to pound violently. The hairs on his body stood on end, and beads of cold sweat dripped from his forehead. Even the recording of the scene by the Medicine King True Cauldron seemed to have been affected, becoming distorted and blurry. Subconsciously taking a step back, Li Fan finally regained his composure, his face slightly pale. Even just the recorded image carries such overwhelming power. Could it be a true immortal? Before Lu Rushan's fall, he had explained many things. Among them was the terrifying existence that loomed over the Xuanwang realm, as if it could devour everything. In ancient times, cultivators who broke through the Tao integration realm and endured heavenly tribulations could ascend to the upper realm, but one day, everything changed. A cultivator who successfully transcended the tribulation and ascended to the immortal realm unexpectedly returned shortly afterward, looking grim. It was then that people realized the path to the immortal realm had been severed. The original immortal realm passage had become nothing but ruins. At the time, most cultivators were only aware of the existence of the Immortal ruins. What exactly the ruins were like, and their true state, remained unknown. With the path to immortality broken, more and more Tao integration cultivators lingered in the human realm. However, the lifespan of a Tao integration cultivator, at most a few millennia, was limited. For those who reached this level, extraordinary talents all, the prospect of sitting idly by and awaiting death was unthinkable. Thus, the longevity immortal realm emerged. There existed miraculous treasures in heaven and earth, capable of granting longevity. Certain rare objects, imbued with the essence of heaven and earth, held special dominion. When a cultivator's lifespan neared its end, defying fate meant seizing these dominions. This was the origin of the longevity attainment position. The earliest longevity immortal realm cultivators achieved their state in precisely this manner. However, the longevity attainment positions were limited, while the number of Tao integration cultivators was far too vast. Conflict was inevitable. In the midst of such chaos, a faction known as the Xuantian sect rose rapidly to power. The leader of the Xuantian sect was none other than the cultivator who had ascended to the immortal realm and returned. At the time, he was the only individual in the Xuanwang realm infused with immortal energy, standing just half a step away from becoming a true immortal. A true immortal represented a qualitative transformation compared to ordinary cultivators. As a result, his power far exceeded that of other Tao integration and longevity immortal realm cultivators. Under his leadership, the Xuantian sect swept across the Xuanwang realm with an almost crushing momentum. Apart from his overwhelming strength, he was also a master strategist. He used the longevity attainment position as bait to recruit over a dozen of the most powerful Tao integration cultivators in the cultivation world. With these allies, the Xuantian sect became unstoppable. From that point onward, the Xuantian sect dominated the world, with few daring to oppose them. This half-step immortal called himself the Xuantian king. The sect's 12 strongest warriors were known as the mysterious Law Kings. After nearly unifying the cultivation world, the Xuantian sect sought to consolidate its rule, inspired by the idea of seizing the dominion of longevity. They began to covet the dominions of other aspects of heaven and earth. In ancient times, cultivators revered the heavens and earth. Although they could move mountains, fill seas, and split rivers, they believed their mighty powers ultimately stemmed from heaven and earth. But after the rise of the Xuantian sect, the rules were broken. The Xuantian sect replaced heaven, granting ordinary mortals powers rivaling those of cultivators through the decrees of their heavenly king. Not all cultivators accepted this domination without resistance. The Xuantian king obtained a rare treasure from an unknown source, called the Xuantian mirror, capable of observing all things in the world. After several secret gatherings, before any significant threat could form, the Xuantian sect wiped them out entirely. Countless cultivators were implicated, and a sea of blood turned the heavens upside down. The sects of the world, already weak, lost any remaining will to resist after this incident. But no kingdom lasts forever. In the later years of the Xuantian sect's rule, they became increasingly arrogant. The sect's members began wantonly oppressing and humiliating other cultivators. Eventually, when the people of the world could no longer endure, the 10 great immortal sects rallied everyone, uniting the cultivators to overthrow the rule of the Xuantian sect. HMPH, now that I look back, the 10 great immortal sects and the Xuantian sect are no different, just two sides of the same coin. The immortal ruins forcibly absorb all material and energy from the outside world. The so-called 10 great immortal sects, the proclaimed leaders of the world's sects, have never informed us about such critical matters concerning the survival of the world. In his dying words, Lu Rushan spoke these bitter words, filled with resentment. Lu Rushan speculated that some unimaginable upheaval must have occurred in the immortal realm in the past. This was the only explanation for the complete severance of the path to immortality. And that corpse atop the immortal ruins, it was likely an immortal who fled from the immortal realm. Even a true immortal could not escape the terrifying pull of the immortal ruins. One could only imagine the catastrophic consequences if the Xuanwang realm were to fall into the immortal ruins. There would likely be no living beings capable of surviving such a calamity. The 10 great immortal sects of the immortal Tao, who led the overthrow of the Xuantian sect and inherited their legacy, could not have been unaware of this matter. Yet they kept it secret. Even when the Medicine King sect attempted to breach the boundaries of the Xuanwang world, they issued no warnings, coldly watching as the entire sect marched to their deaths. It was utterly detestable. The scene continued playing, showing the Medicine King cauldron violently trembling. Ultimately, it narrowly avoided disaster. It circled the terrifying entrance of the Immortal ruins and returned to the Xuanwang world. The vision faded, reverting to the scenery at the bottom of the Kangwu abyss. Yet, Li Fan remained dazed for a long time. In truth, Lu Rushan's decision to use the Medicine King Cauldron to escape the Xuanwang world was not an impractical plan. After all, the lives of every cultivator in the sect were at stake, and Lu Rushan was not a reckless man. The elders of the Medicine King sect ultimately agreed to his plan. There were fundamental reasons behind this. The Medicine King sect's ancestor, Sun Piaomiao, during the initial severance of the path to immortality, ventured into other cultivation realms nearby in search of a way to ascend. But to his shock, he discovered that these worlds, like the Xuanwang world, had also lost their connection to the Immortal realm. Further exploration into the void was beyond his capabilities. Thus, he had no choice but to return. The Tao compass of the Medicine King sect pointed toward a cultivation realm called Xiaoyao, which Sun Piaomiao had visited in the past. To Lu Rushan, since the ancestor had traveled through the void without encountering danger, he believed that with enough caution, he could replicate this journey safely. Who could have foreseen that disaster would strike before they even left the Xuanwang world? At first, Sun Piaomiao could ignore the pull of the Immortal ruins and freely travel to and from the Xuanwang world. But now, escaping has become almost impossible. The Xuantian sect and the 10 great immortal sects have been continuously capturing nearby small worlds and dimensional realms in an attempt to resist the pull of the Immortal ruins. To this day, even the weight of cultivators has become crucial to the survival of the Xuanwang world. So, the pull of the Immortal ruins has been continuously strengthening over time. Li Fan was slightly startled. Piecing together the information, he reached this conclusion. Chapter 6:11. It's very likely. And it makes sense, Li Fan murmured after a long pause, nodding slowly. This conclusion finally resolved a question that had puzzled Li Fan for a long time. When the Immortal ruins appeared, why didn't they directly swallow the Xuanwang realm? Instead, the cultivators within were given enough time to continuously capture nearby heavenly caves and small worlds to resist. Given the terrifying suction power of the Immortal ruins now, if it had been the initial Xuanwang realm alone, it would have been impossible to hold out. Moreover, capturing small worlds is not something that happens overnight. The countless surrounding worlds must be the result of thousands of years of tireless efforts by sects like the Xuantian sect and the 10 great immortal sects. All this evidence points to one conclusion: the suction power of the Immortal ruins has been growing steadily stronger over time. As for why the suction power keeps increasing, it's very likely because the Xuanwang realm is gradually getting closer to the Immortal ruins. A vivid picture formed in Li Fan's mind. On the endless void sea, countless cultivation worlds floated like ships on water. One day, a black hole known as the Immortal ruins appeared above the void sea. Its powerful suction continuously devoured everything around it, forming a massive vortex. Under the influence of the Immortal ruins, the cultivation worlds in the void sea were uncontrollably pulled closer to it. At first, due to the minimal changes, people in the cultivation worlds didn't notice. It wasn't until the speed of descent toward the Immortal ruins increased significantly that they realized something was wrong. Out of survival instinct, akin to a drowning person clutching at anything to stay afloat, the cultivators of the Xuanwang realm began tying ropes to distant, relatively fixed reefs in the void sea, heavenly caves and small worlds, in an attempt to delay their inevitable demise. Of course, during this process, there were cultivators who sought to abandon the ship and search for new vessels to escape on their own. But if everyone did this, the Xuanwang realm would sink even faster. Thus, the leaders of the Xuanwang realm, whether it was the Xuantian sect, the 10 great immortal sects, or the current 10,000 Immortals Alliance and the 5 Elders Association, unanimously decided to keep the true state of the Xuanwang realm's plight a secret. Initially, they believed that by relying on these ropes, they could gradually pull the Xuanwang realm out of the vortex. But they were wrong. The weight of cultivators may be tied to these ropes. Initially, the ropes connected directly between worlds, but after cultivators conquered realms, they became part of the connection themselves. If a cultivator suddenly dies, it's like several strands in a rope disappearing. Though the heavens can mend the rope over time, there's still a delay. If the death rate of cultivators stays normal, it's manageable. But if it surpasses a certain threshold. Li Fan recalled from his previous life how Ji Hongdao, when directly confronting senior sister Zhao in the Tianling prefecture, use the Tianquan spirit locking formation to instantly kill a state's worth of cultivators, using mutual destruction as intimidation. At the moment when many cultivators lost their lives, even the entire Xuanwang realm trembled slightly. These attached heavenly caves and small worlds are crucial for the Xuanwang realm's survival. The so-called ropes are not so easily severed. If it were possible, some cultivators would have fled to these small worlds through the immortal severance passage and severed the connections to the Xuanwang realm. It's not that they didn't want to, they just couldn't. The Empire's use of the 10,000 rift whales to carve paths in the void sea isn't cutting the ropes but extending them. When the ropes stretch far enough, the distance between the Xuanwang realm and these worlds grows sufficiently large, and when the Xuanwang realm finally falls into the immortal ruins and disintegrates, perhaps the other end of the ropes will break free, allowing them to escape. Unfortunately, this process takes too long. The Xuanwang realm might not last that long. Li Fan suddenly thought, if the Xuanwang realm can capture heavenly caves and small worlds, why not connect to worlds of similar scale? A complete world would be much more effective than heavenly caves. Maybe they tried and failed. Or maybe, they couldn't locate those worlds in the first place. An idea struck Li Fan. Other worlds floating on the void sea, realizing the Xuanwang realm's plight, would likely avoid being dragged down by hiding themselves. Heavenly caves and small worlds can't hide, but highly developed cultivation worlds likely can. Those that couldn't hide have likely already been pulled into the immortal ruins along with the Xuanwang realm. Adding to this, the immortal ruins' presence has caused the void sea itself to shift, making previous landmarks unreliable. This could explain why the Xuanwang realm suddenly lost contact with other cultivation worlds. What was once a luminous void sea turned dark in an instant. Each world now faces not only the threat of the immortal ruins but also the need to hide themselves to avoid detection by others. A truly despairing scenario. Though Li Fan considered this grim reality, he felt no fear. With the presence of the truth, finding a way out among countless possibilities was no challenge. Moreover, if even the remains of true immortals can remain intact within the immortal ruins, it suggests that falling into the immortal ruins doesn't necessarily mean death. Survival might simply depend on sufficient strength. After a long silence, Li Fan raised his head, his gaze piercing through the transparent wall of the Medicine King cauldron and into the heavens. If my guess is correct, it's easy to verify. All I need to do is leave the Xuanwang realm and face the immortal ruins directly. Thousands of years ago, Lu Rushan used the Medicine King cauldron to fly in the void sea for a while before being drawn to the immortal ruins. Now, so much time has passed. Once I leave the Xuanwang realm and lose its protection, I might be pulled toward the immortal ruins immediately. Perhaps one day, as we draw closer, we'll even see the immortal ruins and the remains of the true immortals standing silently there. Li Fan summoned the control core of the Medicine King True Cauldron into his hand. In this era, before I return with the truth, I should make the most of this opportunity to explore the truth. After a long time, Li Fan put the crystalline core away. Now that I have full control over the Medicine King True Cauldron, the lives of the Medicine King sect's slumbering members are in my hands. Currently, there are 6 Dao integration cultivators, 23 soul transformation cultivators, and countless nascent soul and lower-level cultivators. My greatest gain this time isn't just these cultivators but also the knowledge of a hidden secret realm, the Valley of Longevity. I wonder if it still exists after thousands of years. Chapter 612. The Valley of Longevity was a secret realm accidentally discovered by the Medicine King sect in ancient times. Named after its abundant production of the ingredients required to refine the longevity pill, the name speaks for itself. The longevity pill is a type of elixir capable of extending the lifespan of cultivators. This pill was a closely guarded secret of the Medicine King sect and the key to its immense wealth and power. Depending on the quality of the pill, the lifespan it could extend varied. The highest quality longevity pill even surpassed the heavenly transformation feather pill, capable of granting an additional 1,000 years of life. To refine the longevity pill, one needed not only extremely high-quality medicinal materials but also the Medicine King cauldron as the core, supplemented by 81 smaller Medicine King cauldrons, forming the great world-saving longevity formation. During the process, the elixir had to be constantly infused with longevity green energy. This process took 49 days to complete one batch of refined pills. Though complex, the results were well worth the effort. Compared to other longevity-extending treasures, the longevity pill had a significant advantage: it could be consumed repeatedly. Although each subsequent pill's effect diminished significantly until it eventually became ineffective, it was still far superior to other treasures that lost their effectiveness entirely after a single use. The Sea of Void was vast and boundless, requiring immense courage to traverse. The Longevity Pill and the Great Dream Spring and Autumn Formation, which allowed an entire sect to enter a state of suspended animation, were the two great lifelines of the Medicine King sect. This Longevity Pill is truly a treasure. Unfortunately, before the Medicine King sect departed, most of the pills were sold off in exchange for reserved resources, Li Fan lamented. The remaining ones are now in the hands of those elders, he noted after examining the inventory of resources stored in the Medicine King cauldron, feeling a hint of regret. However, he consoled himself with the realization that most of the Medicine King sect's cultivators were now under his control. There would be plenty of opportunities to have them refine more pills for him. Feeling somewhat at ease, Li Fan remarked, "Let's check on the current state of the Valley of Longevity. If it remains undiscovered, that would be ideal. After thousands of years, it's hard to imagine what kind of herbs might have grown there. But if it has already been found and developed by the 10,000 Immortals Alliance, well, that's fine too." After reviewing the materials needed to refine the Longevity Pill, Li Fan realized they were still available for purchase in the Tianquan Mirror, though they were rather expensive. However, refining the pills and selling them again would undoubtedly yield a profit. Moreover, he currently wasn't short on contribution points. Zhejiang territory in southern Fuzhou. What kind of place is this? When Li Fan tried to locate the Valley of Longevity based on the coordinates from Lingu Chang's memories, he encountered difficulties. That location no longer existed within the territory of the 10,000 Immortals Alliance. Could it be within the region of the Five Elders Association? Li Fan felt a twinge of unease. Or maybe not. After so many years, and with the severance of traditions, it might have simply been renamed, he thought. With narrowed eyes, Li Fan began comparing the surrounding terrain of the Valley of Longevity to the current geography within the 10,000 Immortals Alliance's borders, hoping to pinpoint its exact location. After a painstaking search, he was ultimately forced to give up. Although I know that the geography of the Xuanwang world changes over time, I didn't expect it to reach such an absurd extent, Li Fan muttered, taking a deep breath. According to Lingu Chang's memories, the Valley of Longevity was near a Wormtail mountain range. But now, there were several Wormtail mountains within the 10,000 Immortals Alliance's territory. Compared to thousands of years ago, the Wormtail mountain range seemed as though it had been cut into dozens of segments, then scattered chaotically across various locations. This was only true for the parts that still retained their original names. As for those that had lost their names, they were even harder to locate. Finding the exact location of the Longevity Valley solely by personal effort would be akin to searching for a needle in a haystack. If one tried to search location by location, it would indeed be possible to eventually find it, but it wasn't necessary. Li Fan's time was extremely valuable. After pondering for a long while, he decided to leave it to the professionals. Storing Medicine King True Cauldron in his personal cave heaven domain, Li Fan silently returned to the Kongyan Sea. He then used the Tianquan Mirror to conduct research and eventually contacted a cultivator named Examen Yu, who specialized in studying ancient and modern geographical changes. Examen Yu's work, an examination of ancient and modern mountains and rivers, was widely circulated. By using ancient sect ruins as reference points and recalculating directional changes, the book offered results that had been verified by many cultivators with minimal error. Of course, the Xuanwang realm was vast, and the examples in the book merely demonstrated Examen Yu's capability in such calculations. If someone wanted to determine the exact location of places mentioned in ancient texts, they just needed to pay a contribution fee, and the problem would be resolved immediately. Examen Yu's intent was clear. He aimed to earn contribution points with his unique skill. Li Fan admired such practicality and efficiency. To obscure his true purpose, Li Fan provided a list of over 50 ancient locations from memory and requested Examen Yu to calculate their current positions. Examen Yu, thrilled to receive such a large order for the first time, repeatedly offered to give Li Fan a discount. But Li Fan waved it off generously, only asking him to speed up the process. Having received the deposit, Examen Yu readily agreed, hung up the communication, and hurried off to begin his calculations. For Li Fan, the extra contribution points were insignificant, a mere drop in the ocean. Avoiding potential trouble was well worth the cost. Recalculating over 50 locations was a massive undertaking, and it would take some time to obtain the results. Meanwhile, Li Fan quietly arrived at Shenhua Island. It had been 7 years since the people from the outer realm were brought here. Yi Feipeng, Xiao Heng, Sun Erlang, and others had all grown into young men full of vigor. However, due to the rule Li Fan had set, that they must defeat the Tianyang puppet to leave the island, they had been trapped on Shenhua Island all this time, unable to take a single step off it. Being passionate and energetic youths, they were nearly going mad from the confinement. Yet, they dared not provoke the Tianyang puppet and instead spent their days sparring with one another to burn off energy. Li Fan smiled as he scanned the group, ensuring they didn't notice his presence. Then, he made his way to a secret chamber on the island. This chamber, protected by a formation Li Fan had set up, could only be entered by the Tianyang. Inside, jars of fresh, crimson blood were stored, faintly emitting the sound of angry roars. These were the result of the Tianyang, acting under Li Fan's orders, periodically extracting blood from Yi Feipeng. After such a long time, a significant amount had accumulated. Even though Yi Feipeng had the Kunpeng bloodline, being drained so frequently made it impossible for him to gain weight. Thus, unlike his previous life where he was a chubby figure, this time Yi Feipeng was rather slender. Referring to him as a refined gentleman would be perfectly accurate. Li Fan suspended a jar of blood in midair and crushed it with a flick of his fingers. The fierce aura of Kunpeng essence blood gushed out, writhing as if alive, inching outward with an unsettling vitality. With a wave of his hand, Li Fan encapsulated the blood within the boundaries of his cave heaven domain and began to analyze and comprehend its properties carefully. The purpose of this study was clear: to replicate the 3 divine abilities that Yi Feipeng had demonstrated in his previous life: Kun Devour, Peng Flight, and Bloodline Transmission. Among these, Kun Devour had become almost irrelevant to Li Fan since he acquired the 5 elements cave heaven. Peng Flight, however, offered a form of escape technique worth adapting. The most critical ability, and the one Li Fan urgently sought to master, was undoubtedly Bloodline Transmission. This ancient beast-originated technique allowed the wielder to imbue their own essence blood into others, subtly influencing and eventually altering their thoughts. Over time, this transformation would turn the recipient into a loyal subordinate who would unwaveringly serve the master of the essence blood. In his previous life, Yi Feipeng, who initially loathed his demonic beast bloodline, had eventually grown proud of his Kunpeng heritage. His disdainful term, demonic beast, had gradually morphed into the reverent, sacred beast. Such a technique was ideal for controlling the disciples of the Medicine King sect and others. For now, Li Fan had managed to temporarily subdue individuals like He Zhenghao and Gao Yuan through coercion and persuasion. But managing a large number of people this way posed significant risks. The disciples of the Medicine King sect, who were familiar with each other, would be even harder to control without direct measures. Li Fan needed them primarily for refining pills and occasionally as combatants. Watching them constantly wasn't feasible. Without a method to enforce his control, he couldn't fully trust them. Thus, mastering bloodline transmission became a necessity. Under his meticulous observation, every particle of Kunpeng essence blood seemed to possess its own consciousness, emitting sharp, unsettling cries that made Li Fan frown. Extracting a single droplet, he absorbed it into his body through his fingertip, closely monitoring how it transformed his physical being. As soon as the Kunpeng essence blood made contact with his flesh, the sharp sounds abruptly ceased. The blood became eerily silent as tiny tendrils extended deep into his tissues, anchoring themselves like parasites. Scarlet flashes of light pulsed along the tendrils, siphoning energy from his flesh into the essence blood. Moments later, the essence blood began to bubble as though boiling, undergoing a self-evolution. In no time, it mimicked Li Fan's own flesh so precisely that even he, the host, could barely discern the difference without close scrutiny. Despite completing its transformation, the Kunpeng blood didn't release its grip. Instead, it transmitted streams of dark red energy back into the attached flesh, initiating an enigmatic transformation. To Li Fan's astonishment, the altered tissues sprouted their own tendrils, attacking adjacent unaltered flesh like predators. So, this is homomorphic evolution, Li Fan murmured thoughtfully. Harnessing the power of his cavernous domain, he obliterated the corrupted tissues and the original Kunpeng essence blood in a burst of ash. Ra Nuobs. The abrupt loss of a portion of his body caused his face to flush, but he recovered almost instantly. The indestructibility of the cave heaven makes a cultivator nearly immortal. This new method truly excels in such aspects. If this were an ancient nascent soul cultivator, recovering from such damage would be far more challenging, Li Fan remarked with mild admiration. After recovering, he absorbed another batch of Kunpeng essence blood and consumed a comprehension pill to delve deeper into the bloodline transmission process. Time after time, he purged the corrupted flesh, then resumed his analysis, repeating the cycle. Finally, when the room was nearly empty of essence blood, with only one jar remaining, Li Fan halted his efforts. A glimmer of insight flashed in his eyes as he pondered. It seems that the process by which Kunpeng essence blood transforms the body mirrors the methods of the new cultivation system. Both extract and analyze a portion of the target, then mimic and replace it with an overwhelming proliferation of the substitute. Ultimately, they achieve dominance by substituting the original entirely. With a single thought, Li Fan took out a slumbering Foundation Establishment stage cultivator of the Medicine King sect from the Medicine King True Cauldron. He extracted a drop of his own essence blood, wrapped it in spiritual energy, and slowly infused it into the cultivator's body. The cultivator instantly awoke in shock, but they were firmly restrained by the binding insect, divine ability, unable to move. The cultivator stared at Li Fan in panic, struggling violently yet futilely. Li Fan, however, remained unfazed, focusing intently on manipulating his drop of essence blood. At first, the infiltration process went smoothly. The essence blood expanded its influence, quickly occupying most of the space within the cultivator's body. However, something must have been exposed. The cultivator's body began rejecting the parts controlled by Li Fan's blood, causing violent convulsions and uncontrollable spasms. They coughed up mouthfuls of fresh blood before succumbing to death in a short time. "Apologies," Li Fan said flatly. With that, he raised his head and looked to the sky. The clouds were light, the wind calm, there were no unusual phenomena. "It seems the heavens have no objections to you old-school cultivators," Li Fan muttered. He then selected another Medicine King sect cultivator and resumed his experiments. 7 days later, after yet another failure, Li Fan paused for a moment. "I've been too hasty," he reflected. Expanding too quickly triggers the body's natural backlash. If I treat the target cultivator as a complete world, then my drop of essence blood is equivalent to a cultivator practicing the new path of cultivation. I may not possess the Kunpeng divine abilities, but surely I can progress step by step. Suddenly, Li Fan seemed to have an epiphany. This experiment was notably longer than the previous ones. Li Fan also exhausted a great deal of mental energy. However, the results were gratifying. The lucky subject remained entirely unaware of the changes happening within their body, sleeping soundly and peacefully. Yet Li Fan could sense a subtle, wondrous connection between himself and the subject. It wasn't as controllable as a clone, which could act as an extension of one's limbs. Instead, he could clearly perceive the state of the subject's body and even vaguely sense fleeting thoughts crossing their mind. Li Fan glanced at the system panel. Sure enough, a new divine ability called bloodline transmission had appeared on the list. Strangely, Li Fan did not seem particularly excited. During the process of comprehending bloodline transmission, he had faintly sensed certain truths. He recalled a fleeting inspiration he had experienced before, a revelation that had been forcibly erased from his memory. If the lucky subject before him were to represent the Xuanwang realm, and the cultivators of the new path of cultivation were the mutated essence blood, subtly transforming the Xuanwang realm, then, what role does the fabled immortal ancestor play in all of this? Chapter 614. Thousands of years ago, the Dharma-transmitting immortal ancestor appeared out of nowhere, teaching the masses a new method to seize the heavens and plunder the earth. From that moment onward, people no longer needed to be troubled by so-called talent. Everyone could cultivate. The trajectory of the Xuanwang realm's history was thus altered. At the beginning, the world of immortal cultivation indeed experienced a brief golden age due to the popularity of the new method. Nascent souls were as common as dogs, and soul transformation cultivators roamed everywhere. However, just like Li Fan's earlier experiment with the Kunpeng's essence blood, such reckless proliferation and devouring inevitably invited retaliation from heaven and earth. The emergence of the restriction against practicing multiple techniques simultaneously was like a thunderbolt to the cultivators of that era. Later, the unexpected descent of the immortal mortal miasma dealt a fatal blow to the cultivators. Subsequently, the Xuanwang immortal cultivation world entered a prolonged dark age. During this time, the immortal ancestor once again emerged. In the desolate lands of immortal cultivation, he gathered the surviving cultivators and re-established the 10,000 Immortal Alliance. The origin of the immortal ancestor has always been a mystery. Neither the 10 great immortal sects in ancient times nor modern cultivators have ever managed to uncover his background. Yet, the immortal ancestor, who was both scholarly and peerless, remained elusive like a dragon's head glimpsed but its tail hidden. Even if the world wanted to probe his identity, it was as futile as raising one's hand to touch the heavens, a goal out of reach. Was he born with innate knowledge? Did he create this groundbreaking method without a teacher? What was his purpose? If he truly acted for all beings, why was he absent during the great catastrophe that ravaged lives? Why did he only appear thousands of years later? Where had he been during that time? Where is he now? There are far too many secrets about the immortal ancestor that the world cannot unravel. At this moment, as Li Fan meditated on comprehending the divine power of bloodline transmission, the suppressed inspiration resurfaced. Thus, he began to deduce the potential methods of the immortal ancestor. Every cultivator practicing the new method seemed like a mutated essence blood, assimilated by the immortal ancestor. Originally part of the world, they had turned into aberrations devouring the world itself. Does the immortal ancestor aim to dominate the Xuanwang realm through this method? Like how I manipulate cultivators using bloodline transmission. Judging by the current results, one could say he has already succeeded. The myriad affairs of Xuanwang lie entirely within his grasp. Li Fan couldn't help but sigh in admiration. Without a doubt, the original immortal ancestor wasn't so powerful. He might have even been just an ordinary Dao integration cultivator. Yet, through this method, he carved out a unique path, akin to a snake swallowing an elephant. In less than a millennium, he had already transcended the Xuanwang realm. However, Li Fan believed that dominating the Xuanwang realm wasn't the ultimate goal of the immortal ancestor. Instead, it might have been a necessary step toward achieving another objective. Just as Li Fan didn't simply control the cultivators of the Medicine King sect for the sake of control itself. Rather, he aimed to use them to refine the longevity pill. Then, what might the ultimate goal of the immortal ancestor be? Li Fan suddenly recalled the silhouette he had glimpsed in the immortal ruins, and his heart shuddered. Could it be that the immortals weren't dead and sought to use the world's power to resurrect themselves? It's not impossible. The so-called innate knowledge, even if it exists, should have limits. To be as monstrous as the immortal ancestor, he must either be a transmigrator like me or a reincarnated individual like Senior Brother Zhang. Or they come from the outside. Whether it's immortals descending to the world, or others smuggling in from other immortal cultivation realms. Li Fan's thoughts churned in his mind, refusing to settle. It wasn't until the Medicine King sect cultivator, whose essence blood he had eroded, slowly awakened that his attention shifted. Who are you? Shayi muttered in confusion, glancing around at his unfamiliar surroundings. His mind was a chaotic mess. He vaguely remembered that shortly after leaving the Xuanwang realm, the Medicine King cauldron underwent violent tremors. Following that, the sect master activated the great dream of spring and autumn formation, forcing him into dormancy. From the look of this place, it didn't seem to be inside the Medicine King cauldron. Where was he? Moreover, looking at the figure not far away, Shayi felt an inexplicable sense of closeness. You're awake, he heard a voice that was extraordinarily pleasant. The tension in Shayi's heart instantly dissipated, and he instinctively relaxed. The figure then began explaining the cause and course of events. Upon encountering a fiery meteor falling from the sky, he felt a resonance between the meteor and a small cauldron he had accidentally obtained before. Thus, he came to investigate. Entering the cauldron, he found that all the cabin doors in the rooms were tightly sealed, except for the one where Shayi resided, which was inexplicably open. He discovered Shayi severely injured and decided to bring him out for treatment. Truly, thank you, Senior, Shayi expressed his gratitude, ignoring many of the illogical aspects of Li Fan's words. In the subsequent conversation with Li Fan, Shayi was repeatedly shocked. What? This is the Xuanwang realm. How did I return here? It's already been several thousand years. Without doubting Li Fan's words at all, Shayi was left soul-shaken, struggling to accept this reality for the time being. I was inconsiderate. I should have waited until you recovered more before telling you the truth. For now, rest. I'll watch over things here. You can be at ease, Li Fan said gently, seeing Shayi's distraught expression. Shayi nodded, somewhat overwhelmed by the unexpected care. Lying on the stone bed in the secret chamber, he soon fell into a deep sleep again. Li Fan observed thoughtfully, to completely disregard me, a stranger, this must be the power of bloodline transmission. The effect is unexpectedly good, immediate, even. However, this might also be because this kid is only at the foundation establishment stage. The stronger the target's power, the longer it might take to fully transform their mindset. After pondering for a moment, Li Fan finally retrieved a green fruit from the cave heaven domain. This blue fruit appeared to exist somewhere between reality and illusion, disappearing from Li Fan's palm at regular intervals before reappearing. The fruit of true temptation, Li Fan murmured as he looked at this treasure from the Five Elders Association. He stepped forward again, returning to the Medicine King Cauldron. Using Linggu Chang's memories, he located Elder Lu San of the Medicine King sect, who had reached the Dao integration stage. Carefully controlling the formation, Li Fan avoided waking Lu San. I am Lu Yihang of the Medicine King sect, the adopted son of sect master Lu Rushan. By the late master's decree, I now oversee the Medicine King sect. Li Fan pressed the green fruit of true temptation to his brow and began chanting. A faint, imperceptible light flowed from his sea of consciousness into the fruit. Moments later, the fruit shed its illusory nature, becoming an ordinary-looking fruit. However, it now emitted a peculiar fragrance that made even Li Fan swallow involuntarily. Resisting the temptation, Li Fan carefully crushed the fruit of true temptation into green liquid and fed it to Lu San. As he deactivated the Great Dream Spring and Autumn formation, Li Fan also activated the internal defense formation of the Medicine King's Cauldron. Standing outside the door, he waited patiently. Soon after, Lu San stirred. Unlike Sha Yi's initial dazed confusion, Lu San immediately sensed something was amiss upon waking. His eyes flashed with a sharp glint as he sprang to his feet, his divine sense scanning the surroundings. When he saw Li Fan standing at the door, Lu San's face revealed a trace of astonishment. "Young master, you're awake too?" Lu San instinctively asked. Seeing this, Li Fan relaxed and calmly deactivated the formation. In a deep voice, he said, "Something major has happened." Lu San frowned slightly upon hearing this and said, "Young master, why are you so flustered? As cultivators, even if mountains and seas collapse before us, we should remain unfazed." "We failed in our plan to escape the Xuanwang realm," Li Fan interrupted. "What?" Lu San's expression changed abruptly. "Foster father, he sacrificed himself to save us," Li Fan continued. "What?" It was as if Lu San had been struck by a thunderbolt. He stood frozen in place. "The master, this is impossible." Lu San's body trembled slightly, his eyes filled with disbelief. Li Fan pressed further, shattering Lu San's composure. "While we were asleep, thousands of years passed in the outside world." "What? How could this happen?" Lu San looked at Li Fan blankly, overwhelmed by grief, shock, and confusion. In an instant, Lu San felt his mind thrown into chaos. Never in all his years of cultivation had he experienced as much shock as he did in this single day. Yet Lu San failed to notice that, despite the outrageous and absurd nature of Li Fan's words, he didn't doubt them at all. Even a mortal youth wouldn't trust someone so easily, let alone a cultivator at the Dao integration stage. But such irrational belief occurred with Lu San. The principles of longevity immortality are truly terrifying, Li Fan couldn't help but marvel inwardly. To better control Lu San, a Dao integration cultivator, Li Fan had imbued the fruit of true temptation with not only information about himself as Lu Yihang of the Medicine King sect but also a setting of Lu San's absolute trust in Lu Yihang. This was to ensure that nothing could go wrong. After all, even ancient Dao integration techniques were far beyond what Li Fan, a mere nascent soul cultivator, could contend with. If Li Fan wanted to take control of the Medicine King sect, he had to ensure that Lu San was firmly under his command. Of the 6 Dao integration cultivators currently in slumber within the Medicine King Cauldron, Li Fan chose Lu San because of his loyalty. Addressing Lu Yihang as young master, revealed Lu San's identity. Lu San was an orphan whom Lu Rushan had accidentally rescued years ago. Growing up under Lu Rushan's care, Lu San's cultivation and techniques were all personally taught by him. The relationship between Lu Rushan and Lu San was both master-servant and teacher-student. Lu San was a man of gratitude and loyalty. Even after achieving success in cultivation and reaching the Dao integration stage, he always referred to himself as an old servant, despite Lu Rushan's repeated encouragement to change his mindset. His unwavering devotion to Lu Rushan only grew stronger over time. When Lu Rushan traveled, he entrusted the day-to-day affairs of the Medicine King sect to Lu San. Given Lu San's loyalty, even though his strength was only average among the 6 Dao integration cultivators, Li Fan chose him as the first target to control. These thoughts flashed through Li Fan's mind as he faced Lu San's bewildered questions. With a sorrowful expression, he said, "Sigh, follow me, Elder Lu. You'll understand once you see for yourself." Li Fan led Lu San to the central chamber of the Medicine King Cauldron, where he played recordings of the cauldron's escape from the Xuanwang realm and Lu Rushan's self-sacrifice to save the sect. Sect Master. Despite his age, Lu San broke into tears, sobbing and wailing uncontrollably. Li Fan stood silently by his side. When Lu San gradually calmed his grief, Li Fan played Lu Rushan's final words. Listening to Lu Rushan's last voice recordings, Lu San's eyes welled with tears again. This time, however, he did not cry out loud. Instead, he listened intently to every word, as if engraving them in his heart forever. The will's image disappeared. After a long time, Lu San reluctantly regained his composure. The 10 great immortal sects, he gritted his teeth and said. Seeing this, Li Fan sighed lightly and said, "The 10 great immortal sects are indeed hateful, but even if we want to seek revenge now, we are probably powerless to do so." Lu San was stunned. "Young master, what do you mean by this? Wait, did you just say that thousands of years have passed in the outside world?" Li Fan nodded. "That's right. After I woke up, I went out to investigate and discovered that, although we had only wandered briefly outside the immortal ruins, several thousand years had already passed within the Xuanwang realm. The 10 great immortal sects of the past have long turned to dust, vanishing in the river of history. Now, the ones dominating the cultivation world are 2 colossal powers, the 10,000 Immortal Alliance and the 5 Elders Association." Li Fan then began explaining the information he had gathered about the current situation to Lu San. As expected of a Dao integration cultivator, after the initial shock, Lu San quickly accepted reality. "Young master, you were too reckless to venture out alone and gather intelligence in such uncertain circumstances. Now that you bear the heavy responsibility of reviving the Medicine King sect, what if something had happened to you?" Li Fan waved his hand dismissively. "Desperate times call for desperate measures. At that time, I thought that the return of the Medicine King's cauldron would inevitably attract the covetous eyes of certain individuals. My first priority was, of course, to understand our situation. Moreover, it's not that I didn't want to awaken everyone else. It's just that." Li Fan's expression suddenly grew grave. "Elder Lu, try circulating the Longevity and Lifespan Sutra and see for yourself." Hearing this, Lu San was puzzled but complied. Moments later, his face turned pale, and he closed his eyes, struggling to suppress the killing intent surging within him. "What is this?" His voice trembled slightly, betraying his inner turmoil. "The great calamity of heaven and earth, inability to practice multiple techniques together." Foster Father's premonition was correct, and the catastrophe is even more terrifying than imagined. Li Fan let out a long sigh. Even the 10 great immortal sects were wiped out during the great calamity, leaving only our Medicine King sect barely surviving. This is also why I haven't awakened the other members of the sect. If they were all to awaken at once, it would surely lead to a tragedy of mutual slaughter. In fact, it took me a long time and a change in cultivation techniques before I dared to awaken you, Elder Lu. Lu San suppressed the lingering fear in his heart and nodded. "It seems that the young master has thought this through carefully. The place we are currently in is called the Kongyan Sea. I was fortunate enough to make the acquaintance of a cultivator overseeing governance here, Zhou Qingong. With his help, I infiltrated the 10,000 Immortal Alliance. For now, I have barely managed to establish a foothold." Li Fan slowly explained the current situation to Lu San. "If it were just the 2 of us, living a decent life in this world shouldn't be too difficult. But as for reviving the Medicine King sect," Li Fan sighed softly and shook his head. "It's exceedingly difficult. The first issue we need to resolve is the inability to practice multiple techniques together. Otherwise, even if we awaken the sect members, it would only lead to more bloodshed. The 10,000 Immortal Alliance does have countless techniques, but they require significant contributions to exchange for them. Although I have been working hard for some time, I have only just managed to exchange for the techniques I need for my own cultivation." So, hearing this, Lu San fell into deep thought. "The longevity pill?" he asked. "Exactly," Li Fan nodded approvingly as Lu San eagerly answered his question. "The current world of cultivation, after enduring several catastrophes of heaven and earth, has seen cultivators' lifespans drastically reduced compared to our time, Li Fan explained. Furthermore, life-extending treasures have become exceedingly rare. Even a pill that extends life by a mere century can drive cultivators into a frenzy. If we can resume mass production of the longevity pills, and exchange them for cultivation techniques suitable for all sect members, there is hope for our future. Li Fan spoke confidently, his tone steady and assured. It's nothing more than revisiting an old craft, Lu San chimed in. As long as we have enough manpower, it's not a difficult task. As he spoke, he retrieved a jade bottle from his storage ring. Here, I have 9 high-grade longevity pills that the sect master previously rewarded me with. Each of them can extend life by approximately 600 years. You, young master, should take these and exchange them for spirit, what's it called now? Contribution points. Exactly, Li Fan replied nonchalantly. Although the name has changed, the essence remains the same. Without hesitation, he accepted the bottle of precious pills, now worth a fortune, with a gracious nod. Lu San, however, voiced his concern. Young master, as you mentioned, these longevity pills are extremely valuable. Selling them occasionally might be fine, but if we do so frequently, won't it attract unwanted attention? Li Fan agreed with a nod. You're absolutely right, Elder Lu. That's precisely why it's not suitable for us to handle the transactions directly. I've mentioned this before, I've established a connection with fellow Taoist Zhou Qingong. He has a powerful background and can manage everything on our behalf. We only need to share a portion of the profits with him. Although Lu San frowned slightly, he refrained from commenting further. Li Fan continued, this is only a temporary solution. In the future, we will undoubtedly rebuild the Medicine King sect. But it must be done gradually and with caution. Hearing this, Lu San nodded in agreement. Elder Lu, stay inside the Medicine King cauldron for now. I'll head back and exchange the pills for cultivation techniques. Once we've awakened some disciples, we can discuss further plans. After informing Lu San, Li Fan exited the Medicine King cauldron. However, the explanation he gave Lu San was merely to appease him. The longevity pills were not going to be casually traded. With his current contribution points, Li Fan had more than enough to acquire the cultivation techniques necessary to revive disciples capable of refining longevity pills. Still, the identity of Li Fan, a cultivator of the Heavenly Mechanism sect, would be discarded after the fiery battle of Crimson Flame burning the sea. Yet, the disciples of the Medicine King sect still held value. The question was how to ensure their identities were cleansed without linking them to Li Fan or each other. After some thought, Li Fan decided to use a divide and conquer strategy. Through his alternate persona, Zhou Qingong, he sought out Gao Yuan. Fellow Taoist Zhou, what brings you here? Gao Yuan was surprised. Ever since Zhou Qing'ang had become the spokesperson for the secret envoy, he had essentially become the de facto ruler of the Kongyansi region. Both Gao Yuan and He Zhenghao had to consult Zhou Qing'ang on major decisions. Moreover, Zhou Qing'ang's work ethic, handling everything meticulously and personally, had reached an almost intimidating level, earning him the Lord's secret envoy's deep trust. It was rare to see Zhou Qing'ang leave his administrative hall, let alone visit someone personally. Gao Yuan was naturally caught off guard by this sudden visit. With a slight smile, Zhou Qing'ang said, no need to be nervous, fellow Taoist Gao. It's just a small matter that I need your help with. Gao Yuan looked puzzled, thinking you're in a higher position than me, what could you possibly need my help with? Zhou Qing'ang spoke to himself, saying, I have a friend who accidentally discovered a hidden secret realm. Inside this secret realm, a group of cultivators was frozen in slumber. After awakening them and asking a few questions, it was revealed that they had originally hidden there to escape the pursuit of the 10 great immortal sects. However, due to an accident, they ended up trapped in slumber. At first, Gao Yuan listened attentively, but as Zhou Qing'ang continued his tale, Gao Yuan's expression grew increasingly strange. Finally, when he heard Zhou Qing'ang express his intention to arrange for this group of cultivators to join the 10,000 Immortal Alliance, his face turned grave with alarm. Nevertheless, being a man of tact and prudence, he did not question Zhou Qing'ang outright. Instead, he forced a reluctant expression and said, isn't this a bit too convenient? I wonder, what is the identity of this friend of yours, fellow Taoist Zhou? Can he be trusted? These people, could they be spies sent by them? He gestured toward the direction of the 5 Elders Association as he tentatively inquired. Zhou Qing'ang chuckled and replied firmly, Fellow Taoist Gao, you're overthinking. I, Zhou Qingong, swear on my life that these people absolutely cannot be spies from the Five Elders Association. You can rest assured, it's just that my friend doesn't want the news about this secret realm to leak. If these cultivators were to join the alliance through normal channels, it would be impossible to keep the matter hidden. So, they entrusted me. Zhou Qingong showed a knowing expression. Of course, there will be benefits. I know that fellow Taoist Gao, in order to exchange for cultivation techniques, has practically exhausted his resources and can hardly afford to activate that spirit awakening state lately. Such a golden opportunity presented to you, you can't miss it. Hearing this, Gao Yuan was slightly tempted. Zhou Qingong's explanation, while not entirely convincing, was plausible enough. However, Gao Yuan still had some reservations. What about the envoy, my lord? Zhou Qingong waved dismissively. Such a trivial matter does not need to trouble the secret envoy. Recently, the secret envoy has just recovered his nascent soul cultivation and is preparing to make another breakthrough to a higher realm. Gao Yuan was startled. This was significant news. The higher the secret envoy's cultivation, the more secure their standing would be. However, neither he nor He Zhenghao was aware of this development. Clearly, the secret envoy trusted Zhou Qingong more than anyone else. If the secret envoy knew that Zhou Qingong was engaging in these backdoor dealings behind his back. A thought flashed through Gao Yuan's mind. Once it appeared, it became impossible to suppress. Since fellow Taoist Zhou has said so, I can't refuse, Gao Yuan said after a brief pause, his eyes flashing with cunning. Let me know before you bring those cultivators here. I'll personally handle their admission procedures into the alliance. Great, great. Zhou Qingong left, satisfied. Gao Yuan, however, paced back and forth as if caught in a dilemma. In the end, he gritted his teeth and made up his mind. He used the fragmented spirit jade slip left by the secret envoy to contact Li Fan. Lord Secret Envoy, I have something to report, Gao Yuan said, his tone full of flattery. Speak. Li Fan's voice was cold, making Gao Yuan's heart sink as a sense of foreboding crept over him. Nevertheless, the arrow was already notched on the bowstring, and he had no choice but to proceed. Summoning his courage, he reported Zhou Qingong's actions. In response, there was only silence. This silence made Gao Yuan increasingly uneasy. I understand, Li Fan finally spoke after a long pause. However, Gao Yuan, little Zhou is right. Don't bother me with such trivial matters in the future. Gao Yuan's heart sank. And I hope you understand, unity is the most important thing. With that, Li Fan fell silent again, leaving the flustered Gao Yuan standing there, at a loss for what to do. Read extra chapters on greater than Spirit Stone translation.